in the quiet at night, with my heart laid bare, something stirring inside, like a silent prayer. You gave me this flame, a purpose divine. Lord, help me remain in your design. Keep my lamp burning, oh, keep my lamp burning right, keep my lamp burning, oh, till I see your light, till I see your light. Every moment I breathe, every step that I take, all the truth I believe, all the choices I make, you fill me with grace, a vessel refined. Now I seek your face, lead out behind, keep my lamp burning, oh, keep my lamp.
Hey everybody, good to see you guys. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you could make it. We are joined by a very special guest today, Kent Reynolds. It's good to have you on, man. I really appreciate this. I think the last discussion we had was really great, and when you decided to, hey, reach out to me again, I was like, yeah, for sure. But it's good to have you. Yeah, I don't know if you want to just introduce yourself, and then you can get started.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks again for having me on your show. Hi, everyone. I'm Kent. So I'm going to be arguing in this debate in support for, I guess, it's evolution, isn't it? There's the counter argument to creationism. So yeah, I thought with just this format, what will happen is I'll just say a little bit about sort of evidence in support of what I'm saying, and then I'll allow you to come in and probably be a bit of back and forth if you see it that way. So yeah, I'm not a biologist or anything like that. So I've only just made a few notes on some of the supporting arguments. I guess from my point of view, the way I'm looking at it is that the evidence in support of evolution is overwhelming, and obviously there are doubters for that, and there are a few hoaxes that have sprung up in relation to evolution. But my response to that would be to say that, okay, mistakes may have been made. A lot of the mistakes were made in the Victorian period, but just because there are a few mistakes which were then corrected doesn't necessarily mean you can trash the theory. It just means that, you know, a few rotten apples have come up with a few things. So I guess that obviously what's put forward as the strongest argument is things like the fossil records, and you can see in the layer of sediment in the soil the bones of creatures. There are the bones survive and the flesh dies. So you have evidence of animals that you don't see around anymore, and they've got common features with animals you see today. For example, you know, the classic example is the woolly mammoth. So we don't see those running around today anywhere, but we know they exist because there's fossil records, and we can see the similarity between those those records and the records of an elephant. So we know it's closely related to an elephant. In particular, we're interested in ourselves, so there's also human evolution, and so I think this is one of the biggest talking points, isn't it? The argument about, well, you know, did we evolve from apes? Did we evolve from monkeys? And where's the evidence of the species in between? But I would argue that there is evidence of species in between. We found fossils of creatures that look like they're somewhere in between, say, an advanced ape and a human. I forget the exact names. I think one of them is there's Homo erectus and there's Australopithecus, I think, is one of them. And they have found these fossils that are, not necessarily the missing link, because I think it's misleading to look for the missing link. I think it's just that you are finding fossils of creatures that are somewhere in between the two. So there's fossil records. Then there's looking at things like DNA and the genetics and observing the way that works. That you've got the fact that we understand how DNA works, and we understand how the majority of creatures on this planet have very similar DNA. I mean, we share a lot of DNA even with plants, even though they're a very different biological organism to us, but we still share a lot in common, which suggests a common ancestor. I mean, we share a common ancestor even with a plant. If you go back far enough, and what I always say is, if you go back enough times, your great-grandfather's great-grandfather and their father and father, you go enough times, you'll get to a fish, because you're just going back generations, and there are more similarities between us and a fish than they are with an insect. And then as you get closer up the chain, you have these different groups. You've got mammals, so they're different from birds and they're different from reptiles. All the reptiles share similar DNA and similar biology, and birds share a very similar biology. Mammals share a very similar biology. We are mammals, we've got very similar traits to them. We're warm-blooded, whereas reptiles aren't. We have very similar organ structures, the full chamber. A lot of the physiology is very similar. And then you look at the group that we call primates, which is what we're part of. We believe that started off with an insectivore type animal, similar to a lemur, and that like a tree shrew. And then the theory is that then evolved into a very diverse set of subspecies to that. And why does evolution happen? Well, it's because it's natural selection, which is what the evolutionary theory is. So that's very important to understand how natural selection works. So how that works basically is that you've got these things called genes, and they code for certain traits and certain basically proteins in your body, and they form what the body is made of. And these genes get passed on. Now, a gene, there are variations in the gene because it's made of DNA, which is, I'm sure everyone's seen the structure of DNA. It's like a double helix type structure, and it's different molecules that are attached to each other. So because it's quite a long chemical chain, it means it's fairly vulnerable to attack by chemicals, by what they call free radicals, which are basically atoms with electrons knocked off, so they're unstable and they want to bind with something else. So they can get attacked. Radiation is very vulnerable to radiation. And we've got, there's UV radiation in the sky, there's cosmic background radiation. So that can alter the DNA, which is the genetic code. And if there's a mutation that doesn't do anything, then nothing happens, and that probably won't get passed on to the next generation. If it does something, it changes something. It might code for, perhaps bigger eyes or shorter eyes or a bigger nose or something of that nature. And if it gives a competitive advantage to that organism, then it gets favoured in the sense that, well, if that organism's got an edge over the other organisms without that trait, they are more likely to live long enough to reproduce, and then they pass that gene on. That's basically how the theory works. And so where you've got an ecological niche, the tendency is for that species to want to exploit that niche and multiply so that the genes then get passed on. And if there's a change in that niche, for example, a forest burns down and then it becomes a plain, then that might swing things in favor of a different type of trait, which might be favored. There are also, of course, lots of traits which are disadvantageous. And so that is, if that gives a genetic disadvantage to that particular animal, they might be more likely to be eaten by a predator. Let's say it's a mutation in a gene, which means that hinders them running away from a predator. Statistically, if you multiply that across hundreds of individuals, that will mean that it's more likely that those particular animals are going to get eaten and won't pass their genes on. So that's the theory behind it as to how it happens and why it happens. I know one of the arguments is that, okay, well, that might explain why there's evolution within a species, but how do you get from one species to another? What's the so-called macroevolution argument? It's difficult to prove and show, and the reason for that is simply because of the timescales that you're talking about. It's quite difficult for the human brain to grasp the concept of hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs were roaming the planet. We think of a lot of things in lifetimes, decades. It's very difficult to look at that period. So, there's the classic argument. I'm sure it's not an argument you would raise, but some people say, well, how come we don't see monkeys turning into humans now? And obviously, you wouldn't. That just shows a misunderstanding of what the theory of evolution is. It's one thing to not believe in evolution, but you need to understand it to then argue against it, if you see what I mean. So that's a misunderstanding of it, because it doesn't work in that way. You can't observe it in the same way that you can't look at a 10-year-old. If you see a 10-year-old, and well, they're not growing. I don't believe this 10-year-old is growing. But, you have to give it longer. So that's the same thing with evolution. So it's particular from one species to another. That's going to take a long time. It might be helpful just to outline what we define as species. So a species tends to be where they can't interbreed or can't interbreed very easily. So if you've got very different animals, they might look different. So, for example, dogs, they vary in size and look, but they're all considered to be the same species because they can interbreed successfully. So that's the challenge, is to explain that. But just because something's difficult to explain doesn't mean it's not true. And one can still look at the fossil records. So what else is there to argue? So I think one of the arguments is that, so look at the counter argument, which is intelligent design. So I think the counter argument is into that. Say you find a watch in the desert and there's no one around, and it's a habited island. The assumption isn't that the watch sort of came to be by sort of just mutual assimilating of bits of sand and random stuff. That there must be an intelligent designer behind that. So that's one of the arguments. But when you look actually at animals, you see things that have evolved that an intelligent designer wouldn't do. It doesn't really make sense. Why would it be that way? It's better explained by the evolutionary theory. So, for example, there's I don't know the exact details. I'm not a biologist or anything, but a giraffe has a particular, I think it's a particular nerve that goes all the way up and then back down again. If you were designing the giraffe, you wouldn't have that. It's because of the way a giraffe has evolved from a shorter necked animal. Because that's the way evolution works, is it's a very small step at a time. So if having a long neck is an advantage, because you can get to the top branches and you can see predators from miles away and that sort of thing, it would happen in increments. It wouldn't just suddenly, there wouldn't just be a mutation and then suddenly it's a long neck. It would be a slightly longer neck than another animal would have, give it a slight edge, and then that would then favor, and then the next, it would then be a selection pressure that pushes the next generation to have an even longer neck. So everything else that goes with the longer neck would then have to match it. So if the nerve needs to grow, it needs to grow up and then it would come the way back. It wouldn't just go straight across. So you can see a number of things, even humans, we've evolved to be on 2 feet, but that does create problems with regards to backs, and lots of people have bad backs and everything, and a lot of that is attributed to the fact that we are bipedal. And if one were designing a human, one wouldn't design them necessarily with this way. It's obvious it's come from an animal that was previously on four limbs. Another argument I'm going to raise is simply the study of embryology, because if you look, I think this is quite a powerful argument. It's not actually argued that often. If you look at, say, an embryo of a crocodile at, I don't know how many weeks, like 2 weeks or something, or a month, and you look at an embryo of a human, or you look at an embryo of a chicken, when you go quite far back, quite early, especially the vertebrates, they look very similar. Is that there are differences, of course. A crocodile embryo will look different to a human embryo, but they are very similar, and they become more divergent as the embryo develops. But you can see the commonality, and you can see it's almost like playing evolution out, because for example, we start with what looks like a little bit of a tail, and then that goes away, and then we have a number of nipples that are formed, and then some of them, they disappear, and then we only end up with two. And the formations in the lungs that are similar to gills, and then they change as the embryo develops. So I would argue that's quite a support for evolution, because you can see how it's happened, how these genes have manifested. So the changes in the genes, they get expressed later on with development. It starts off that way. And it'd be difficult to explain that other than through evolution, because if it was intelligent design, why wouldn't it just look like a miniature human and why is there that commonality? So I guess a lot of the arguments for evolution are sort of just arguing how it wouldn't work the other way, if that would make sense. Another argument I've seen, it's not so much an argument against evolution, but it's more a sort of moral argument, saying that look what evolution has produced when you take it to extreme. You've got the Nazism in Germany, survival of the fittest, nasty, brutish and short, very sharp, abrupt way of life. That's not what we wouldn't want to live in a society like that, where it was survival of the fittest. It would be very cruel, and we don't want to operate that way. And I think that's where a lot of pro-evolution people would agree with creationists, is that we know we don't want to live in a society like that, and we don't want to take Darwinism to its literal meaning, but we would then spin it on its head and say, but precisely, it's important to understand that that's the fact, that's how nature is horrible, nature is cruel, the animals get eaten alive all the time, and we want to build something away from that, because we are sophisticated creatures, we are intelligent creatures, and we've developed society, we've developed a way of life, and this is so that we can live in a better way than the animals do. Because that's been produced as a result of evolution as well, in a way, because we as primates have developed, we are where we are because we have a very big brain, and that takes a long time to develop, and it requires a lot of the right lipids and proteins to be eaten. And you need a society that protects, because we aren't as strong as a lion. We haven't developed huge claws and sharp teeth. So how do we protect ourselves? Well, it's because we lived in caves, and we were intelligent, and we developed hunting tools, and we befriended the wolf and bred and learnt to breed animals. So we had basically domesticated the wolf, so that the wolf would benefit from us by having the scraps of the hunt that we produce, and they would then be able to protect us either by attacking an animal that might come into the cave, or because they've got a much keener sense of smell and hearing, so they may alert us to predators and that sort of thing. And it's beneficial for us not to have a completely sort of dog-eat-dog world, because we've got children to develop, and the idea of a family and grandparents being around to help with the next generation and passing on that knowledge, because we need to pass on all of that knowledge that we've accumulated. So I think that probably is enough from me for the moment. I'm sure you'll raise some points, and then that might trigger me to say some other points. So I don't know if that was helpful, just as a
No,
run through some of the
I
arguments.
appreciate. I'm kind of echoing back there, but okay. I appreciate your opening. I just want to find out. It sounds to me like are still hinging on normal Darwinism. So it doesn't sound like you've gone to the modern neo-Darwinism, though. Um, is that what I'm getting? You're still just on normal Darwinism,
Yeah, I'm going on the traditional. I mean,
traditional, yeah.
what exactly do you mean when you
Yeah,
say
the new
yeah?
modernized neo-Darwinism is just basically an adaptation to say that kind of hinged on the speciation is based on the development throughout the years. So it's sort of still on Darwinism. It's just based more on modern thinking of chance. Um, Obviously, the issue I do have with evolution is even if we have to go to traditional Darwin himself, at the end of the day, he still kind of alluded to it needed creation to start off the chain. Now, basically, the whole evolution primordial soup is the thing that was there. But when it comes to like the creation versus evolution argument, I look of it as where did that primordial soup come from? If we know naturalism requires the nature to just have been there to create itself. So, how the naturalists see this primordial soup is just a bunch of very specific environment. So, it just had the great same building blocks that gave enough time, and just by chance, something came out of it. That is practically what the belief is. But I don't take that to be, how can I say, a logical deduction or anything, because if you look at, for instance, the first law of thermodynamics, nothing can be created out of nothing. So you need something to have the building blocks. And since you have the primordial soup there with your environment that you needed with these billions and billions of years old, you first needed something to have been there to have to create that environment. And that's where it comes to creationism. Um, I I'm glad you brought up the ontological primitive with the clock. I usually use the sandcastle analogy though. When you're walking past the beach and you see a sandcastle and you think, did it come by itself or not? Um, the problem that you have with the Darwinism is it's all by chance. So you have to understand it's a likened unto like a hurricane in a junkyard, hoping that the parts will go and build an aeroplane. And so, yes, there is a lot of, how can I say, nuances to understanding speciation and understanding isogenesis. When it comes to the mutations, it's all explained through creation as well, because God did create species to be able to adapt and mutate through the environment. We see this with humans today. Even let's, for instance, take the Tibetans. They've adapted through their generations to be able to stay at high altitudes, to be able to live with those conditions of low altitude and low oxygen levels. It doesn't take away the fact that this was all created and God created the system to be able to adapt. um, I think it's human nature and just, well, nature in itself, where even animals and all species are able to adapt and, um, I can say, mediate towards their environment. Because you can take, for instance, different species of fish and you can put them in different places of the world. Eventually, they will have some differences between them just based on the environment you place them in. Now, that doesn't mean they evolved, that just means they adapted to the environment. Um, as it is with the giraffe's laryngeal nerve system, I know people do bring this up to say it's an argument for evolution, because why would God create something that has to go up and then, back down, because it's just not efficient? Well, I can't actually really argue against that, because just like there is evidence for evolution, there's also evidence for creation. And I still do see that as evidence for creation. Why would God create it that way? I can't tell you. But does it function? Yes, it does. Still, again, it could just be just based on how the function of the giraffe is. And I don't think in any records ever since there has been a giraffe, anybody has seen a difference in that nervous system. So it hasn't been adapting to make it more efficient, as you could say. Um, I guess that's practically all I could bring up right now, other than the um, the fact that uh, evolution requires you to take a big leap of faith and hoping by chance something will just happen in the right environment, by ignoring that that environment had to be created in the first place, is the big issue I have.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. You've actually gone straight to the core point, and actually you've addressed something which I perhaps should have, which I didn't, which is the start, what kicked it all off. And you're right to hone in on that, because that is the real challenge, and that's the thing that's very difficult for science to explain. And science hasn't really explained it. There are theories as to what happened. Some people say it was a meteorite, must have brought the right chemicals. Although that's not as silly as a theory as it sounds, because meteorites were much more common if you go back a few billion years than they are now, because that was when the solar system was forming. So some people say it's that. Some people say that it can come from the lightning, the chemicals forming a primordial cell, because it started off with the cell. But yeah. So you've covered something I was about to ask you, which is that it's always important to know precisely what the individual creationist believes, because different creationists believe different things. And it sounds like you're a creationist who accepts that the mechanism of evolution, once life had started, perhaps, am I right in saying so, that with the fish example you gave, that you accept DNA codes for
Yes,
genes, and you accept that,
mutation. I would say
yeah,
I would say the evolution is based on mutational habits. So I wouldn't say it is evolution. I just think it's more
right,
of a hijacking evolutionist take from the creation standpoint. Because another issue I didn't bring up now was, if you had to take evolution, you would understand that the decoding of the gene splicing, because of the are using all the coding up, it will devolve, not evolve, because you're using information up. So based on entropy, we're not supposed to be getting more efficient. We're supposed to be getting less efficient because we're using up code.
I see. So with your fish example, how are you saying that they are adapting, as you put it? If not through genes,
That's why I
or
say
do
it's
you
not
accept it's
evolution,
through?
because through evolution, because it's working on building blocks that's already there. So it's working on a genome
Sure.
that's already created, and now it's just mutating that genome to fit based on its environment. It's adding new code. That's why I say it doesn't fit evolution. To me, it fits mutation based on creation.
Do you accept natural selection? That's what happens. So that a mutation which is
In
favourable gets
in a
passed
way,
on,
I
and
wouldn't say fully. I would, like I say, I would just call it mutation based on speciation.
I see. Yeah. So what I would say is, when you look at something like a snowflake,
Mhm.
it has a certain level of beauty and complexity. And when you look at things like the branches of a tree, and the intricacy and the beauty of nature, it's very tempting for us to wonder and say, well, how did this beauty sort of come about? But one can explain how snowflakes form, and it is by a natural process that doesn't require an intelligent designer. And sometimes beauty is in a repetition of the basic, of what, like a basic structure that starts off. So the branches of a tree are a classic example, where it's one thing and it splits into two, and that thing splits into two, and that's how you form that. And a similar thing with things like the human eye, and the eyes of other animals are very complex, finely tuned organs, but they are made of more basic parts, and you can disassemble an eye, and you can see the cellular structure, and that eye does develop in an embryo, so you can see in real time um, how it develops. So I guess the problem is how far back you go. So if evolution is happening on one scale, how does that fit in with the creationism? For example, do you believe in Adam and Eve, or do you believe in something else? Because the belief in Adam and Eve has got its own difficulties. And if it's created, and how is it? Are you somebody that believes that perhaps the primordial soup was created, and then everything else, and then evolution took over from there? Or
I'm
do you
I'm
say that the animals were designed
I'm a
individually?
six literal day guy. I do believe Adam and Eve were the originals. I don't believe in the primordial soup, um, and I definitely don't believe in billions and millions of years. So, uh, yeah, I don't want. I wanted to say something, and then I got totally. But
Sorry.
no, it's fine. But yes, the reason I'm saying I love that you also brought the embryo up, because if you look at the proteins that the mother feeds over to the baby for the development of the embryo to become into a baby, that alone shows that the genome code is copying a already known structure, and it's keeping with it. It's not, how can I say, it's not developing something based on new code. And evolution requires new code for that to happen, and there is no way to explain that new code. I think one of the main issues that also evolutionists have is what they call, I don't know if you know about the protocell. That would be the originated cell. That it's not nobody's able to actually replicate the protocell. It just, it's impossible. So the whole building.
Do you mean, when you say protocell, do you mean the first cell that came into
Yeah, it's
existence on the planet? Or do
self-replicating
you,
original
yeah.
cell. So in other words, it had to literally make new code by itself, and it had to replicate itself based on new code, which gives new code once it's replicated.
How do you explain viruses on your theory? What are they doing around? And they've got genetic code in them, and they
Yeah,
replicate.
that's just based on creation. Like I said, with the creation, the new code is still based on, it's still mutating on the building blocks that it's there. With
But who
God.
created the virus? Do you say was that created, or did God
No,
created the
God
virus?
created the humans with the DNA, but because man had fallen because of sin. Obviously, you're not a Christian, so you're not going to be. But because of sin, came into the world, so virus is part of the curse. So it was almost, you can look at it in a scientific way of bacterial decay, almost like if let's say you get an infection, and you start getting sores and blisters and stuff. It's due to an infection. So a virus is an infection based on the sin, if I would say it that way.
Did Adam and Eve know right from wrong? When
Yes, that.
they did, but when they ate from the fruit from the poison tree, um, I thought it was only after they did that they were able to
No, no.
to know
What
that.
happened is that was from the knowledge of good and evil. That tree, they still knew good and wrong. They still had
Yeah,
free will. They obviously, how can I say, they were blinded to some knowledge, because it
yeah.
was a tree of knowledge. So there was some knowledge that they obviously were blinded to, but because of their disobedience, um, that's what caused the fall of man, and that's why everything went haywire. Because also the Bible does believe that there was no death, so the animals weren't eating meat at that time. Everybody was vegetarians. You understand? So yes, I do believe there is adaptations on, like even with you said the woolly mammoth and stuff. I do believe there were extinct animals. I mean, we still get today species going extinct, and and new discovered species that we've never found before. Even insect species just pop out of nowhere. Um, is it environment based? Who knows?
Yeah, one of my biggest problems, I suppose, with the Adam and Eve theory is that if there were only if every we all started from two humans, then that biologically that's got some problems. So obviously, it would mean there might have to be interbreeding between siblings, perhaps, or between a sibling and a parent. And when what we see today in biology is that when that happens, it's likely to cause
Big problems.
big problem. Yeah, interbreeding will cause big problems, in, genetic abnormalities, and
Mhm.
all sorts of things, and vulnerability to disease. And also, a small gene pool tends to be wiped out. You need diversity to have strength. A virus will come along that will just wipe out that. If they're all genetically similar, then they're particularly vulnerable, which is why they're worried about cheetahs, because they are very genetically, they're not very genetically diverse compared to other
Well,
cats.
you see, the Bible only speaks about the first man and woman. He doesn't speak about other people who didn't create it. Look at Cain and Abel. Where did Cain get a wife from? It wasn't his sister. So God obviously created more. You understand? So there was diversity. It's just the Bible specifically talks about the original Adam, which is just the first man. That's all it's is the story is about. So imagine God had to say, "Well, and I created this, and I created that," and it would make. I think it's not
Well, yeah,
what the focus point of it was.
yeah. Um,
But I mean, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Let's, for instance, say if you have, I've seen this a lot when people breed with dogs, and then they take the puppies, and they take the puppies and they mate with the father again, and they have puppies again. That their genes do get weaker. They do have more issues. They usually get born with deformities, or they get born and they end up not living as long due to those deformities and things. So yes, it is a genetic trait that happens, but this is not something that's supposed to be a thing if you really look at it based on evolution, because if evolution was something that would adapt to the evolutionary trait and be a survival of the fittest opportunity to say, okay, we can still procreate optimally with the closest kin we have. But because of that's why this is a fitting thing to say it fits into Bible narrative, because it's seen as a sin to to be interlaced with how can I say, I can't think of the word now, but you know what I mean. It's just
yeah.
it's wrong.
Oh yeah, interbreeding and other incest. Is that what you're, word you're looking for? It's essentially incest, isn't it?
Incest, yes, it's incest,
Yeah.
yes.
Um, yeah. So on your, just to understand your theory, so what you're saying is that God would have created more. We wouldn't have stopped with Adam and Eve. He went on to create more, and then that got around the problem of the interbreeding. And
Yes.
therefore, I assume you're saying that the animals, that even the ones that might be similar to humans, they were also created. And you
Yes.
would explain the fact that they might all be genetically similar because it's come from the same creator. So he's just going to alter
That's
what he's sort of creating. And that's
It's a good way of looking at it, yes, because he did say, "Let us create man in our image." He didn't say, "Let me just create a man in my image." So when he created man himself in their image, there was multiple. But yeah, it's just explaining the original story of Adam and Eve.
how
But the
do you
same with
explain?
animals. Sorry.
No, no, go on. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's the same with the animals. God created the animals to have dominion of the earth, and then Adam was created over the animals as authority. So obviously there can be how can I say, because the reason we see similarities between plants and animals and people is because it's God's signature, you can say. Usually when you have an artist, he has a very specific style to how he makes his art. So that I would see that those similarities and the way the leptides are working and the DNA structure is based on God's signature.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say that. I suppose for me, it's just a question of plausibility, because for me, that explanation isn't as plausible as the other explanation, and my explanation does require I think that's the big divergence, isn't it? How old is the Earth, and how long has life been around for? Um, and for me, the scientific explanation is more likely because it has more evidence to back it up, rather than just reading something out of an old scripture. So, for example, with carbon dating, that is very well explained and does show the Earth to be much older than that. And I don't know, I'm sure you understand.
Well, you
Maybe you
see, the
don't necessarily
thing,
understand how carbon
yeah,
dating
the problem
works.
with carbon dating is it's not 100% accurate, because you can take the same sample to different laboratories and they'll all get a different age for that carbon. And carbon dating is not very, I would say, trustworthy. Let's win.
But it's the same order of magnitude, though. Is they're not out by that much between. There might be obviously it's not an exact, because what you're basically doing is you're
Well,
measuring um, that basically how much radioactivity there is in that
let's for instance
carbon.
take diamonds. For instance, diamonds debunk carbon
Yeah.
dating because you can create a diamond now under immense pressure, and they will pick up carbon dating of millions of years.
Yeah, but I think that's not quite understanding the process, because it's
Because
not
it's got to do with the
so
half life
much.
of carbon. That's all what carbon dating is going to do.
Yeah, but it's not to do with the half-life of normal carbon. It's to do with the half-life of an isotope called
Hmm.
carbon-14. So I mean, you have to go back to the whole the scientific explanation as to how these atoms exist in the first place, which is through formation through stars, other stars, not necessarily the sun, stars that have lived, died, exploded, and formed the ingredients, which then formed the solar system. So, because carbon is before iron in the periodic table, iron is the golden, the one that's stable. And so you need to have a supernova explosion to go past, to create an atom heavier than iron. But carbon's pre-iron, so that does get formed in a star. And so when carbon is formed, it's formed in a number of variants, the majority of which is a stable form called carbon-12, and that's to do with the number of protons versus the number of neutrons that are in the atom. Carbon-14 is unstable. This is the nucleus I'm talking about, not
Yeah.
the electrons and everything. And because it's unstable, it's radioactive, so it wants to become another atom. I don't know enough nuclear physics to know which it becomes, but it becomes something else. I'm sure somebody could correct me and tell me what it becomes. So, but what happens is once it's formed, it has what that's called a half-life. And the half-life is just a measure of, because the radioactivity, it does sort of decline. It's the half-life will be the amount of time it takes for half of the radioactivity to decline by half, basically. And then it takes the same time to decay to half, less another half. So it's a kind of slow, ever decreasing. It's a curve like that, because it's half
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
half
That
again, half
halves.
again. So that's how you can measure. If you take a piece of carbon, you know roughly what percentage will be carbon-14. And if that percentage is lower, then that suggests that that's older because it's had more half-lives, if that makes sense. That's how they do carbon dating. And so with the diamond example, I guess if essentially it's carbon-12, there might be some carbon-14 in there, but it doesn't disprove the carbon dating just because the carbon might be formed now. That's true, but it will still have less carbon-14 than something, because you haven't created the carbon, have you? You've got it out of the rock and then squashed it to form the
Yeah, yeah,
diamond.
yeah.
But anyway, the point is that that's the incompatibility, is that in order for evolution to be valid, the Earth has to be more than, is it
Yeah,
6,000
you
years
need
that
billions of
the
years
Bible suggests?
for the
So,
primordial super to have created life. You need at least, I'd say, what, 100 billion years?
uh, Well, no, I think, well, they say the Earth is 4 billion
Okay,
years old,
so
roughly,
let's say 1 billion years. Let's
based
just
on
say you
carbon
need at
dating.
least 1 billion years.
You'd need a long time, but a bit. Well, my point is that I don't think any of us are capable of getting our head around what 1 billion years is. It's easy. It rolls off the tongue easily, but it's one. Depending on your definition, I think. I think is it 1,000 million? I think however many
But
it is.
it's a long
It's a
time.
hell of a long time.
But
It's a long time.
but yeah, but like I'm saying, it all comes down to again the ontological primitive. Where did that primordial soup come from? Because a naturalist has a huge problem um, when you look at how nature works. It cannot just create itself, and I'm sure you're going to say nature didn't create itself. So where did this natural environment come? Where did this mass just pop out of nowhere? Because when it comes to the spiritualistic look at it, we understand that God is outside of the universe. So he's able to place that building block inside of the universe sphere, you could say, to build everything out of there. So he puts the building blocks in there. He's an outside source because he's supernatural. He doesn't need to be bound by natural laws. Now, when it's a naturalist point of view, you need the building blocks to be there, but where did those building blocks come from to be able to have your evolution?
Well, we do know where the building. I don't think the difficulty is with where the building blocks came from. I don't think evolution has any problem explaining the building blocks where they come from. But where you're right is that the challenge, and this isn't well explained, is how those building blocks came to make that first cell. And there are lots of theories, but obviously it is a bit difficult to prove because we're not able to jump in a time machine and go back and see. But we know, for example, that proteins are made of amino acids, and we know the ingredients for that was there in the primordial soup. We know, for example, that there was a lot of lightning back then, and the ozone won't have formed. The ozone layer filters out a lot of UV radiation, so that means the UV levels would have been higher, and different temperatures and so forth. So it's possible. There are theories for why, and obviously they're difficult to prove. But one of the theories is in connection with obviously how viruses are, and there is a theory that perhaps it was like a pre cell that formed first, that wasn't really alive, and then the viruses evolved, and then it was actually a virus infecting a pre-cell that ended up being the precursor to the cell that went on to form multicellular organisms. But I guess my point is that although the story might not be explainable in a complete way, that doesn't mean the story's wrong. It might, there might be some missing jigsaw pieces, and one can see the sort of thing that might have happened. I suppose that's the best we can do. The sort of thing that might have happened with regards to all these, ammonia and other hydrocarbons that were present in the earth, the electricity, the UV light, and multicellular organisms. So you had single cellular organisms for a very long time to start with, and there would have been what they call a symbiotic relationship, which is where there was a genetic advantage let's say you've got a group of, let's say all the cells are the same and they've all evolved and they're all splitting and multiplying. The ones that are at the edge might develop into a different type of cell to the ones in the middle, because it might be that the nutrients are at the end, but the ones in the middle can't get to the nutrients, but they might have something else. Maybe they're getting the sunlight and the other ones are getting the nutrients, just as an analogy. So they would work together. So the ones that can get the photosynthesis from the light might pass on those nutrients to the other one because they can get the nitrates from the surrounding water and pass it through. So you get like a back scratching going on. And that's the precursor to the multicellular organism, because that's what we are. So we've got a group of cells form into there are liver cells, and they're doing a certain job, and you've got heart muscle, and that's doing something, and muscle cells are doing something else, the brain cells are doing something else. And we are multicellular organisms. We are an ecosystem, and there's bacteria in us, and there's viruses in us, and viruses might even help, because viruses inject genetic material into the cell to program the cell to multiply more viruses.
Yes, and
And so that's a way of injecting. And the other advantage of the other thing that viruses do to help evolution of species is it does kill off the weak. And so that helps the strong. It's another selection pressure. So that species is going to evolve quicker if there are viruses to kill off the weak. And it also stops overpopulation, because whenever you've got a population that's getting too big, the viruses can then multiply better amongst them because they're all going to be crowded in. That's the theory. But we only have theories for how it started, I guess, is
yeah,
the
yeah,
problem.
yeah. So at the end of the day, it sits in the same go. It's all, you just got to trust the system you're in, and trust what they say about. Let's, for instance, like the carbon dating scenario with the stars. Obviously, I don't believe the stars are like you explained them to be. So to me, it's all just total nonsense because I mean, I have a total different belief system than you. Um, but it does come down to just believing what they say about the stars. It does just come down to believing about what they say carbon comes from. Um,
Yeah, but if I could put something to you, just to see, be interesting how you react to this. So let's say, I know you don't believe in it, how the stars formed and everything, but let's just say, just imagine it was true, that is how it formed. Do you accept that it has a logic to it, that if that was true, it could do this and it could form this? Do you accept that? I mean, it works on a theoretical level. If you create
yes, but it's
gravity.
but it still just comes down to where I say, when it comes to the ontological primitive, at the end of the day, it comes down to the building block. How did all that matter come? You see, that's where my brain always reverts to.
We keep
Yeah,
having to
yeah,
go further
yeah.
back, so then you have to go
It's
back
like
to the Big
infinite
Bang theory
regress
and
kind of
everything
thing.
else.
So you keep on going back. You're like, okay, fine, I can accept this was yeah, but what happened before that? Because that's why my mind's like, based on naturalism, you couldn't have had anything to start anything off. Um, and because the coding is happening, where's the code coming from? You understand? You guys are just believing, okay, it just happened, and we don't know, so we just accept it. That's practically what it is.
Well, my view is that the reason why a lot of people share your belief um, is simply the way the human brain is wired, because we're humans. And I think I did make a similar point to this on when we were debating flat Earth, which is that um, you've got to remember that the human brain has evolved not to understand the universe in a complete way. That is not what the human brain evolved for. It evolved primarily to survive. We are the ancestors. We are the sorry, not the opposite word to ancestors. We are the descendants. That's the word I'm looking for. We're the descendants from survivors, aren't we? So we've descended from people that have survived. And the classic example is when you hear a rustle in the grass, it could be the wind or it could be a predator. And so we are hardwired to believe that if B happens, um, B must have been caused by A, because it's more likely if it's caused by A and you're right, then you can escape. And if you're wrong, well, you've escaped without a reason, but that's better than being eaten alive. And so we have a real problem. And I have that problem myself, obviously, because I have the same brains as everybody else. That it's very difficult to understand how it could just come about. But when you've got that much time available to science, and when those conditions are right, and if lots of different things are happening, why, I would argue, why not? Why couldn't it form? Why couldn't there have been a primordial pre-cell that perhaps that wasn't a living organism, but the selection pressures will always happen because that's just the way nature
It's a
works, is
process.
that things that work stay and things that don't work
Yeah,
go. I
we
mean, that's
we
just
both
how,
agree there's a process.
even how the earth works in the
Yeah, I
first
mean, we
place.
both agree there's a process to how things work. So I don't have a disagreement on, yes, there's processes on how things adapt. But that's just, I don't specifically believe in evolution. I believe that we do have adaptation, And I do believe it's God's way that He built us to have adaptation, to be able to adapt with our environment. I actually want to ask, how would you try and explain an evolutionary standpoint on um, genetic mutations like sicknesses in families that skip generations? Like you have a generation where somebody, for instance, has a type of Down syndrome, and then it skips two generations, and the next generation they have it. How would you explain that using the evolution kind of timeline, explaining that?
I mean, yeah, it depends. I need probably a bit more detail on what it specifically was, but there are a number of explanations for that because genes, it's to do with the fact that you get one set of genes from one parent and one set of genes from another parent. Because humans reproduce by what's called sexual
Mhm.
reproduction, whereas a singular cell would be asexual reproduction. So they'd be two identical, that they just split, whereas we've got two different set of genes. And so you've actually got a pair of genes for every single so the gene is in a pair, basically, one from each parent. And you have recessive genes and the dominant genes. So there are some traits that you need the gene from each parent in order for it to be expressed, and some of them you just need one. I think if I'm right in saying that blue eyes are recessive, and so you need brown-eyed and blue-eyed, and it might end up being more like brown-eyed rather than blue-eyed. Um, so there are these recessive genes. So if there's a genetic vulnerability, it can skip a generation depending on the combination. So it might be that you've got from one parent, but then with the next generation, you might have had it supplied from somebody else. So they were a carrier, so they passed it on. So I'm wondering if that might be the explanation for it. The other thing I wanted to address is the word random, because a lot of people that don't understand evolution use the word random. They're not actually random mutations. They are mutations caused by a particular environment. So if a load of humans go to the equator, they're going to receive more UV radiation. So if they're from a high latitude, what they call high latitude, it could be northern or it could be southern, they go to the equator, they're exposed to more UV, and we've already evolved the way to produce more melanin in response to it. But if it's a selection pressure, so if it results in more skin cancer and deaths in people that don't have enough melanin, that will select for those that have to have more melanin, so that the mutations aren't random. They are
You see, so we
selected.
sort of have the same kind of understanding how the mutations work. I also do believe a lot of the mutation we do see and how can I say adaptation is based on a person's diet as well, because you can see a lot of people that live kind of in fisherman environments. They have a very fish based
Yeah.
diet, so they have a lot of omega oils, and um, they pick up a lot of parasites because of the fish and things, and they have different type of diseases compared to someone that lives, let's say, in more inland by city kind of areas or farmlands.
But it doesn't, the diet won't change your
The
genes.
diets,
It can,
the
yeah,
people, let's for instance look at I think it's some kind of tribe, they only few generations that only depend on eating fish actually. So they have a total different, they've adapted more to that lifestyle, that they can't really stomach any other type of food that much because they've become accustomed to only really eating fish now. So
yeah.
that's their nutrient base, so they're not really getting any other nutrients. I think they call it what, pedestrian, how do you can't pronounce
I think you mean a pescatarian
pescatarian,
diet,
yeah,
is that it?
they're like, and if
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
going to try and change off of that pescatarian diet, they will struggle quite a lot because they're not used to a different diet.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There are adaptations that can happen without changing genes, obviously, because we can adapt if you start a different diet. it can change things. But I wouldn't say that was an argument against evolution. That's just an argument that there's a facility to adapt even within a particular individual. It's limited, I would say. So obviously you can create a bigger adaptation with genetic change, but that requires lots of, potentially hundreds of thousands of years.
You see, that's where we're different. We understand this adaptation because of environment, but where you say it's based on evolving, I say it's just based on mutation.
No, but I'm agreeing with you that there's adaptation. For example, if you if you suddenly switch to a very high fiber diet, your digestive system will adapt to it. That's nothing to do with your genetics changing. Your genetics are the same. It's just that you've evolved from people that have developed that adaptability to adapt to that. I also wanted to just reminded me to address that point. You made a really interesting point about entropy, and actually, in a way, you're right that on the face of it, evolution and human life flies in the face of entropy, because entropy is all about it's essentially the arrow of time. Time only goes one way, and everything goes from a state of order to disorder, and never back. So it's the reason why when you drop a plate, it shatters into several hundred pieces. But you very rarely get 100 pieces of plate on the floor that reassemble and come back. And it's also, by the way, the same reason why it's so easy to, your house will, just by living your life, your house will become messy over time. You have to actually put energy in to make it tidy, and then it becomes messy over time. And mathematically and scientifically, why does that happen? It's actually to do with probability, because and actually entropy is actually to do with probability. So it's because there are only certain number of configurations,
micro and macro states,
and the number of objects that are what we call tidy are much lower. So, a pile of papers in one neat thing, but there are so many more combinations of those papers being all over the place. So over time, it's more likely that so that's basically the theory behind entropy. But the answer to your point is actually demonstrated by a refrigerator. It's best produced by a refrigerator, because a refrigerator is an anti-entropy machine in a way.
It's as a reversal, because it's taking from the outside and it's placing back in.
So what the rule is that you can trick entropy, as it were, because you can create more order. You can create order from disorder. That's true, you can, but only at the expense of some more disorder somewhere else. For example, is it will cool down all your food, but if you feel the back of a fridge, it's really hot, so it's creating more heat somewhere else. Same with an air conditioning unit. And there's a very interesting thought experiment, just briefly to mention. I'm sure you've heard of it, which is the Maxwell's demon.
Yes. Yes, the Maxwell demon, where they have the two compartments, and you have the demon opening the closing the partition just for that certain to go through. Yes.
And the thought behind that is that it's defeating entropy, because what he could do is be very clever. So if you've got a load of brown brown gas in one compartment, and let's say red gas on the other compartment, you lift up the hatch, you would expect they would merge and then eventually be an equal mixture of brown and red particles. But if the demon only lifted it up when a brown particle came in, and then closed it when it was a blue particle, he could create the reversal. So he could have it and make it all brown on one side. But the answer to how it doesn't violate entropy is because he requires brain power to do that. And the brain power will generate more heat energy than would be saved by the reversal of the entropy.
But you see what my whole thought on this was, because of entropy, and you're saying we are evolving, that means it's creating new code. It's going specifically against the entropy law. It's creating new code that wasn't there.
Yeah, but I would say it's not, because the entropy only needs to be obeyed overall in the entire universe. So you can have entropy being reversed in one part, but it will create it has to. It will create more disorder somewhere else. So we die, and then our materials return to the soil, and there's the reverse. That's not
Regeneration, you're kind of saying.
there's your entropy, and another person is formed. But then there will be our bodies produce heat, and we lose heat by radiation and convection and conduction.
Yeah,
And
yeah, because all that
yeah,
happens is it just transforms or transfers. That's all that
yeah.
the energy does.
But eventually, the answer to it is actually very simple. Every single atom that exists will eventually decay, because what we call a radioactive atom is just an atom that has a short half-life. All atoms have a half-life. It's just that there might be quite a few billions of times more than the life of the universe so far is the half-life of a stable element. So, but eventually it will decay, and when it does decay, then there's your entropy, and it'll end up, the theory of heat death and everything
That
else.
actually makes you think. Do you believe in the crunch?
I don't rule out the crunch. I think that the current model is that the crunch won't happen because there isn't quite enough gravity. There isn't quite enough matter to create the gravity to
To crunch
bring
it?
things bring it back. But I think the jury's out as to whether there might be some other mechanism, because we don't understand dark matter and we don't understand dark energy. And dark energy seems to be the thing that is forcing the universe apart. The reason why we think there's dark matter, it's called dark because we can't see it or detect it, and it doesn't interact with anything, is that when we look at the
No, it's
galaxy,
all the melamine, man. That's all.
yeah, there's too much matter. There's not, sorry, the other way around. There's not enough matter
There's not enough. Yeah,
to justify how the orbital
yeah,
speed of the galaxy.
yeah. The thing is, it goes against the what you guys understand gravity to be, because you need matter for the mass to be able to warp the space time, and because there's no visible mass or matter there, you can't explain the warping,
We can't explain it, but just
the
because we can't explain
gravitational
it
field, you could say.
doesn't mean it's not there. But actually, there's a deeper point, which is that I follow a chap called Lawrence Krauss. I don't know if you've come across Lawrence Krauss. He's a physicist. He's written a book called The Universe from Nothing, or something like that. And I think, comes up with quite a compelling argument as to how you could have a universe from nothing. It's counterintuitive because we think, well, where did this energy come from for the Big Bang and everything else? But basically, in essence, what he's saying is that because you can have positive energy and negative energy, that the total gravitational energy of the universe is nil, because the positive energy is balanced out by the negative energy. That might not make a lot of sense, except that where you imagine, so you've got this when a particle is created, for example. And under quantum theory, you can have spontaneous production of virtual particles, and then they annihilate each other, and you can have particles being produced. But when a particle is created, and another particle is created, there will be a very small gravitational force between the two under the theory of gravity. And so there's gravitational potential energy, what we call potential energy.
Oh yeah, like
So,
when I pick up its potential gravitational.
exactly. Yeah, and so the potential energy cancels out the energy that's inherent in the matter, because matter is energy, and so that it balances itself out. So
Equals mc squared.
yeah, so as it pushes out, it's increasing the potential energy between those the particle systems, and that balances out the energy that's pushing it out. A star is a good example of that, because you've got the two forces at work. You've got obviously gravity's trying to pull everything together, but at the same time, what's happening is the pressure's so strong in the center of that star that it's actually forcing the nuclei of the gas. It tends to be hydrogen, or it could be helium, so that they're actually merged. And when they compress so strongly, they overcome the repulsion, the electromagnetic repulsion.
So they cancel each other out, in other words.
So the two forces cancel each other out. So it will produce a lot of energy because it combines to form something slightly less massive than what you had originally, and that loss of mass manifests itself in terms of energy. So you have this energy that pushes it out. So you reach equilibrium because the amount of gravity pulling in and the amount of pushing out equalizes until you run out of fuel. So when the star starts to run out of hydrogen because it's fused it into helium, because when you fuse two hydrogens together, you get helium.
You get helium,
Then it initially expands because you've got a loss of actually, no, other way around. No, so it's producing more energy, so it will expand because it's now fusing helium, and so it gets bigger. But what you have is the core then compresses, and that's how you form the other elements like carbon, nitrogen. I think carbon's the next one actually. I think after helium, carbon, and all these chemicals get formed. But it stops at iron because iron is the most stable. You can't get past that unless you've got huge energies, and you only get that in a supernova explosion, which is a star that is so massive that when it compresses down, the energies are so huge it just sort of flies
Do
apart.
Do you believe in quantum mechanics?
I do.
Do you think that quantum physics fits with evolution, though?
I don't see them as really that the paths don't really cross. Except that you need quantum physics for what's happening at a subatomic level to happen. And therefore, I suppose without quantum physics, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I agree. I do believe quantum physics is the building blocks of everything, and that's why I do believe God has quantum properties. That's why he's omnipresent.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm actually I would probably describe myself as agnostic rather than atheist because I I guess I don't believe in the God of the Scriptures, but I
You just
don't
know it's creative.
rule out. Yeah, but I don't rule out something I don't understand that might be
Yeah.
a force or a supernatural force or something that might have kicked
Hey,
it off.
that's a
Yeah.
good start, though. Rather know there's something that you can't understand than just totally ignore it because you don't understand.
Yeah, exactly that. But I don't believe in the God of the Scriptures because for
Yeah.
me it just doesn't. There's no evidence for it. It doesn't match up, and the scientific theories are more plausible for me.
Maybe that's a debate we can have sometime. I
That'll be
think
another one. Yeah.
I think that might be a bit more triggering one.
It is. Yeah. Well, there's a bit of a deep because this one's a little bit narrow, isn't it? It's quite narrow.
Yeah, the problem is we know we're not going to change each other's minds, so
No,
it's not.
and it's not about that,
This,
is it?
so it's not like we're really going to argue that much. This is more
Mm.
like a discussion thing, and I'm enjoying this though because I do really enjoy having the discussion and trying to figure out what you believe and what you think because
Yeah, and look, it's so much. You need to understand the other person's point of view, and then we're all human and we've got the same brain. I don't have a different brain to you. You've got the same brain as me. So who's to say you're not right? It's only my pathways think this, but your pathways think something else. And who's to say who's right, who's wrong? And I think
exactly.
it's quite arrogant. It's quite arrogant to tell somebody.
I 100% agree because at the end of the day, everybody has some form of faith. You still have to have some form of faith of what you believe in, and I think, like you said, it's arrogant to think that what you believe is probably more true than what the other person believes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in my eyes, my experience, I'm right and you can't be right. But I understand that this is just my brain. Your brain will have your own construct, and for you, you've got exactly the same thought process, but for your viewpoint.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's how it works. But yeah, so it's very interesting. Very interesting. Always an
Yeah,
interesting subject to bring up.
yeah. So I will see you as like, how can I say, almost because we're both Reynolds, by the way. We're both K
Yeah,
Reynolds.
and
So
we
it's
both
like,
got the same initials.
so it's like it's almost like from different timelines.
Yeah, and we're in a similar
I
time. We're
mentioned,
not quite the same time zone, are we? I think you're 1 hour. You're one
yeah, just
hour
an hour difference. Yeah.
ahead. You're an hour ahead. But I think we synchronized briefly before the clocks change and stuff.
Yeah, you guys will go back to 2 hours in a few months again, I think.
Oh, okay.
'Cause
So
you guys have
it changes. Yeah, but
yeah, we don't
you don't move your clocks. No.
never, no, we always stay the same.
Yeah, that's probably a very South African thing, isn't it? You know, we're going to
Yeah,
be
South
different.
Africa wants to be as lazy as possible.
Brilliant.
I just want to
Yes,
say,
go on.
I just want to say, do anybody want to have any questions? I'm sure if you got questions for Kent or myself, we're more than happy to answer them. Send a super chat, or they'll get to the top of the list. Otherwise, you can just tag us, and then we'll be more than happy to answer it. I already got one. Um, where are any of the transitional species that should be found with the vast number that we know? Thanks, Aurorian, for your $10. Really appreciate it.
So that's, I guess that's probably for me, that question, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, that's you. I'm going to put in the
yeah.
priority so you can see it.
Yeah, I mean, oh, brilliant. So I would say that there are, because we've seen, Homo habilis, and that we have discovered fossils of creatures that are very human-like, but still have traits a little bit similar to more primitive primates. And there's also a little bit of a danger that whenever we do find such a fossil, is that then the creationists come back and say, oh yeah, but then what's the missing link between that and the next one? And so you can never satisfy the creationists on fossils, because they'll keep saying, okay, well, that's that one, that's just another species or subspecies. What about in between that? So I'm not quite sure I would accept that there are no transitional species, because in a sense, every individual is a transitional species in a way, because who's to say that they're not the next generation in the line of forming another species? But I suppose it just depends on selection pressure, because if you take an animal like a crocodile, they haven't changed in millions of years, and that's because if something works, then it doesn't. Nature won't change it because there's no selection pressure. And the great white shark hasn't changed an awful lot, we don't believe either, when you look at fossil records. But so where you've got changes, where there's been a change in environment, so the theory about human evolution is that there was a change in the environment in the savannah in Africa that supported a loss of fur and bipedalism.
So let's say, for instance, say like the bull shark, it can swim in fresh water and salt water. Now,
Right.
why would only the bull shark have those tendencies where, for instance, a great white can only swim in very certain parts of the ocean?
Well, I think it's not a question of why didn't the great white shark evolve that ability. I suppose if there's always a compromise. So actually, a brilliant example would be the crocodile and the alligator. So an alligator can survive in colder climates than a crocodile can, which is why you see them in Florida and sometimes quite northerly latitudes. And they've got an ability to stay in frozen water with their snout popping out, but they don't have the ability to go into salt water. Whereas a crocodile can cope with estuarine environments very well, but it can't cope with the heat. So it's all about specialization. So if an animal develops an ability to also tolerate salt and fresh, there'll be a compromise somewhere. Maybe it won't be as efficient in fresh water. And you can see that with our amphibians. I mean, they're not as good as land animals.
Yeah.
On land, and they're not as good as fish in water, but they got a halfway through. So an amphibian is only selected because there was an advantage of breeding in the water and then going on land and then finding food on land.
And you
So I
see,
think
this
that's
is
that's the
this is
answer.
also one thing why I also can't really believe in evolution, because if you look at the food chain, very specific species are always staying in the food chain. Why haven't they evolved to say, quote unquote, not be part of that food chain anymore?
So this is the art about prey, saying why are prey? Why don't they evolve? But of course, they do evolve a way to run away faster. So gazelles are very fast because they've got to escape from prey. They've got very good instincts and very fast reaction times. But I think the answer to why they don't just all evolve to be predator proof is the answer's in the herd, because there's safety in numbers and they've evolved the herd. So if you're an individual, then there's the chances of you getting eaten is actually quite low because you've got that many animals. And they believe actually that's why zebras are patterned the way they are. it's because of safety in the herd. There was an experiment I saw somewhere where they drew a red dot on the zebra of where the white is, so that that animal got selected by the lions and got eaten, and it's because it looked
Because
different from the
he
others.
stood out. Because he stood out.
Yeah, so I know it's a balance, isn't it? Because if the predators evolve to be better predators, they'll eat more prey. There'll be less prey for them, and then their numbers will go down. And the same with the prey. If there aren't enough predators, or they're too good at evading predators, they'll multiply too much, and then there'll be too many of them for their food source. And so that's not a selection pressure that they need. So it's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best answer.
I guess so. And then we have a question for you. Why did scientists fake missing link bones to deceive people?
Okay, I'm glad that was asked because there's quite a good answer to that. I think I kind of gave it earlier. I touched on it, which is that there were fraudsters and forgeries in life all the time. I think, wasn't there an example? There was a biology book a long time ago that had these illustrations of embryos, and it was proven to be fake. But what I would say is that just because there are people that fake stuff or make mistakes, even that doesn't disprove the theory. That just means that there's a fraudster out there. There can be a fraudster in creationism as well. Great. So
Yeah, and that we do find everywhere, though. People trying to get their name in the books, and then they make up things. We've seen this.
and that does happen and shouldn't happen. But I would say that that's not an argument against evolution. That's just argument against that particular piece of bad evidence.
Yeah. We got another one. Thank you, Godzilla, for your $5. He says, "I don't believe you, Kent. How many more millions and billions should I add till I do?"
Well, was that billions of years? Yeah, I mean, hey, look, it's not me you're believing or not believing. It's in the theory of evolution. I'm just here almost like a spokesman for it. But everyone's entitled to their opinion, and if for them it doesn't add up and they believe something else, then they're free to do that. I'm not here to sort of force people to go one way or another way.
Yeah. We're just having friendly discussion, debate, guys. We just found that we can have a good, cordial conversation, and something we enjoy. Something we enjoy doing. I remember when I was still studying art, I was commissioned to make a femur for a T-Rex for a museum. And they gave me like this old broken cast bone that I had to repair and then fix and make a mold from and stuff. And then I was thinking that, like, why aren't there really real bones in that museum itself? But the answer I kept getting was, well, it's only at very specific museums, and half of the bones are just like stored in vaults. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they have to try and preserve it. Bones can be fragile and deteriorate and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's difficult because people want to see the evidence, and a lot of the time, all you see is books, don't you? Diagrams and replicas in museums, and so you have to take somebody's word. I suppose that's the point that was made about faith, that everybody has to have faith at some level. Because I can't go out and repeat every single experiment that's been done. I can't go and repeat Einstein's experiments. At some level, you have to just accept that somebody else did the experiment, and you have to trust in the scientific system, which is a cross balance and a cross check, isn't it? So somebody will come up with a theory, they'll do an experiment to try and prove it, and then because there are other people that will try and disprove that theory, it gets tested, and if it survives the test, then it becomes a stronger theory, a bit like the Wikipedia model. So the reason why it's not full of junk, and you can more or less believe in Wikipedia. I know there's probably some elements of it that aren't accurate, but you can more or less rely on Wikipedia because you know that if somebody put stuff that's just a load of rubbish, it would get commented on or taken down or something. So I guess that's how science works. If something was just completely wrong, somebody would come along pretty quick and say it wasn't correct. I mean, you had that with that nuclear fusion, cold fusion. Somebody came up with what was cold fusion,
That
was quickly debunked. and that's what happens with the scientific method.
But yeah, but I think you do at least understand how the scientific method works, though. To a
Yeah, and it's a method, and it's probably not 100%, and it's flawed. And scientists gets things wrong, but actually, it's more exciting when it's wrong, when it's proven wrong, because when it's proven wrong, it means there's something even more interesting or even deeper than that. So it's not that Newton was wrong; it's that Newton's explanation was incomplete, and Einstein came along and added another layer and said, well, that's all well and good at those speeds, but then when you get to a different speed. That's just an approximation. There's something else going on, and somebody will probably come along and say Einstein was wrong. Not wrong, sorry. His theory is incomplete, and his theory is incomplete because it doesn't work in a singularity. It only works at this sort of great speeds and long distances, but it kind of breaks down when you get down to a singularity because quantum physics and the name's gone now. Relativity. They don't talk to
they
each
don't
other.
gel. Yeah, they don't gel. 100%.
They don't gel, and that all that tells, and you get infinities. And when you get infinity in equations, it's telling you that's nature's way of telling you that your theory is incomplete. That's my view. So you require infinite energy to reach the speed of light if you have rest mass. And you require it's an infinitely strong gravitational field at the singularity. That's just telling me that the theory is incomplete and there's something else we don't understand.
Yeah, I guess that's why they're moving more to quantum gravity right now. I know the last few years they've also been looking at Eric van der Linde's entropic gravity because they're trying to explain a few things that doesn't fit. But don't you think? But you see how I see this though is, would you not roll the accept maybe it's wrong and go back to the drawing board from the beginning, then try and create a God of the gaps argument for
but that's not how science. Yeah, that doesn't tend to be how science works. So when Einstein came along, it wasn't so much that you could throw Newton's equations out the window. It's because you wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't use relativity to calculate speed or your average speed. Like when you go on Google Maps and it tells you it's going to be half an hour's journey, a time. You need to rely on Newtonian mechanics for that sort of thing. If you wouldn't be calculating things on a relativity basis, it would be pointless telling you that if you travel at 50 miles an hour, that means you'll get there. 0.2 nanoseconds quicker than otherwise. It would be useless information to you. So that's why you can't throw out Newton's equations, because you need them for practical purposes. So it's not wrong. It's just there's another layer.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, if you found out, okay, it's not working for what you're saying, it could be wrong. Instead of trying to, how can I say, build on where it's left off, you just create a whole different new theory on what you think could be the reason, the cause for why things fall. Because that's how gravity started, was why do things actually fall? So then everything is now built off of that hinging of, okay, things fall, but now when you get to certain aspects, okay, it doesn't fit anymore with that. So we're just going to build onto that where we build. And that's why we call it the God of the gaps argument. And that's why I do believe we sit with dark matter at the moment. Instead of just going to the drawing board and say, okay, let's start from scratch again and see, okay, maybe there's a different reason why things fall. Instead, they just build onto it and make what I say is God of the gaps.
I see your point, but I guess it's just not the scientific method to do that, because you don't throw away stuff that works, and that is because Newton's equations were very accurate. But maybe Newton's not even a good example, because there are some things that are just completely wrong. Say that we thought this, and then it turns out that actually that's not correct at all. We thought we didn't know about atoms. And we thought of the fire and heat were separate things, and we thought there was something called the ether.
You still get people believing the ether there.
Yeah, I know, but you'll always get people believing all sorts of different things.
So yeah,
But people used to think that fire was a substance, and now we understand that it's not a
yeah,
substance.
flastogen. They used to believe flastogen was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I suppose you're right. There are some instances where science has come up with something and it's a complete rabbit hole. I think science is honest enough about that, that when it goes down the rabbit hole, it does come back out and say, well,
And
no, that's the wrong, let's
and
try this.
also, nice thing about science, sometimes you are able to realize you can have the same effect for a different cause. So you can have different causes for the same effect. So that's what I
Yeah.
say. It is possible to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, maybe gravity's not what it is. Maybe it's something else, and they could do it straight from scratch again. You understand?
Well, actually, it happened with gravity because in Newton's day, they thought gravity was a force like the other forces. But Einstein came along and said, no,
Yes,
I don't
not.
think that's how gravity works. It's actually not, it's not a force as such. What it is it's a distortion of space-time, and it's just matter that's trying to balance itself out. And it does that by moving a certain direction because it's everything is trying to travel in a straight line, but if the straight line's curved, it bends basically. So in that sense, it's not a force at all, and it is different to the other forces. I mean, it acts like a force, but it's so much weaker than all the other forces, and it operates over such a long distance that's a bit of a clue that perhaps it isn't quite the same as the other forces. So that's a good example of seeing things differently. And actually, Newton is wrong in that respect because it's not a force, according to
Yeah.
Einstein.
I think Eric Kent did actually say this in the beginning, but I don't think he was. Yeah. Does Kent believe in evolution from Darwin or more spiritual?
It depends what you mean by spiritual evolution. I mean, I think, yeah, I do believe Darwin was right. He may not be completely right in every single detail, but the theory itself is more or less correct. The origin of the species and natural selection, and I do believe that that's how organisms evolved. I can't explain how the first cell evolved, or maybe it wasn't even one cell. Maybe it was a number of cells that came about by the same process. But yeah, that's difficult to explain.
And then Kyle somehow says, Kent, give an example of gas pressure system without a container in the real world, without begging the question.
A gas pressure system without a container. Well, a good example of that would be the atmosphere, wouldn't it? Because it doesn't have a container, it doesn't need a container. I suppose it's because it's not a hard barrier. It's a gradual a change in density of the molecules, and so you don't have a hard barrier between vacuum and substance. This is overlapping with the flat Earth debate, isn't it?
Yeah. And we're definitely not here to debate with the gas pressure container thing of it. But yeah, you know my answer to that. It is still begging the question. And but yeah, it's just something people can't get around though because you do
What's the question that's begging? That's what I don't understand.
you begin the question that the atmosphere is contained.
Yeah, but the atmosphere isn't contained. It doesn't work like that on my theory. So it's
Yeah, it's pressure gradient.
it's a gradient. So you don't have that hard barrier, and that gets around the problem very neatly, basically. So that's just a false. It's an understandable thought process. You've got vacuum in one place, and then you've got stuff in another place. Usually, the stuff moves into the vacuum.
Second law of thermodynamics, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does try to do that, but there's a bigger force pulling it down, which is gravity, and that's the problem.
And then Flats, I have another question. Does Kent believe he has a soul that exists?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and that is one of the powerful arguments against a pure evolutionary theory. It brings into question a number of things. So somebody came up with an interesting thought experiment that I saw to do with AI. So it goes like this. So say, obviously your brain's made of neurons, right? And they are interconnected, and they form your brain and your memories and everything. So if one could create an electronic circuit that could mimic the operation of one neuron, and if I took one of your neurons out and put this electronic neuron in and connected it to exactly the same other neurons that neuron was, so you would still be you, right? Because you lose neurons all the time and you're still you. So if I replaced one neuron with an electronic one, you'd still be you. But then that brings up the question, okay, let's say if I do two, are you still you? And then there comes a point, like, say I've replaced almost all of them. At what point do you not become you? Do you see my point? And so could I create you virtually just with electronic neurons, just by individually replicating your neurons? So what is you? Are you the collection of neurons?
I think
Or are
the
you something
question,
higher than that?
I think the question should be what is a soul?
And that's a million-dollar question, isn't it? It's very difficult to. Well, the way I put it, and I've thought of this right back to childhood. Why am I me and not you? Why am I experiencing? What's the me that's experiencing all this, and why aren't I you? And it's a very difficult question to answer, isn't it? And I didn't exist before I was born, and I have no recollection of that existing. And my argument is that that's what happens after death. People say, well, what's death like? What things were like before you were born. But I believe very much in the saying, I think, I forgot his name, the atheist that died. He's got the brother that writes for the Daily Mail, Chris something or other.
Chris Hitchens.
Hitchens, yeah, that's it, yeah. So he said, shoot me in the head and I can go on no more. And it's quite a profound statement. So I think what he's saying is it's the brain. You know, you shoot somebody in the brain, but when they go to heaven, do they go up as somebody with half their brain missing, or do they go up as somebody with a perfect brain? Or you see, this is his argument, and that we are our brain, and we are a biological creature, and those pathways have created that entity.
But you see, he was still coming from a naturalistic point of view again. I was thinking that, okay, your body is part of your soul, so you go up with a half a brain kind of thing. Where we as Christians, we understand that your soul, your spirit, and your body are three different things. They're separate from each other, but they work together. So your soul would be your consciousness, and your spirit would be your life force, and your body is, well, just your container here.
Yeah, but that's something that just can't be answered. I don't think science can answer that.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I think it can't be answered scientifically because it's not natural. I think it's a supernatural thing. That's what I believe.
Yeah, it's a paranormal. Looking for the paranormal explanation for it. I mean, there are some theories that it's to do with quantum. It's like a quantum physics thing, a quantum creation. But yeah, very very difficult to explain that one.
Do you want to see how you're begging the question?
Okay, let's see. Because it's circular. The natural. You are citing the one alleged exception to the natural law as evidence of exception. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, let me reread that. It's a very thought-provoking question. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's probably right, and I probably haven't explained it very well. But I think it's just simply that it's not something that can be explained by science. Why am I me and why am I not you? And it may be something that we yet need to discover, or it might be something that you can't understand it with the human brain, because we only understand the world around us in a certain number of dimensions, and there are other dimensions. I think quantum physics will probably give you the answer, because there you've got a situation where there might be a number of things that happen at the same time, and that we only experience it through one path, and that actually everything else is happening at the same time in other dimensions or other universes. Sort of like a probability matrix.
Yeah. What did I want to say now again? This is why I shouldn't read chat. When I want to say something, I read.
Exactly, yeah.
Uh, but I think the probabilities are good. And this, oh, that's what I want to say. And this is why I do believe quantum physics is evidence for God, because it does give that link between where science can't explain how you can have multiple things at the same time. I think God, in its essence, is able to say why there's multiple outcomes at
Yeah.
exactly the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think quantum physics is probably the closest you get to paranormal activity.
Definitely.
Because it is, and it was the famous Richard Feynman who said, if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't understand quantum physics. Because it's not actually capable of being understood in a normal context. It just doesn't make sense, but it's actually more, it's been proven to be accurate more strongly than Einstein's theories. They keep doing experiment after experiment, and it keeps on proving to be true. And it's very difficult to understand. You've got I think one of the most difficult things to understand about it is the what they call that status it's in when it's both things at the same time. So and the idea that you don't know that the thing isn't one or the other until you look at it. So observing something can affect the outcome.
If you look at
Superposition, that's the word I'm looking for. So in a state of superposition.
I mean, if you look at uh, the quantum eraser experiment,
Yeah, that's messed with your brain, doesn't it?
yeah,
It's like how, so it knows in advance what it's doing. It's just crazy. But
it's like
they do the experiment time after time, and it's proven to be true.
it's it's odd how that works. And I mean, I think that's very perplexing that for anybody to actually think about that. How can this actually just happen? Just by observing something, there is an effect.
It completely changes. Yeah, I mean, the only explanation for it is that it is actually both things at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's the act of looking at it. There's a number of explanations given for it. So one of them is that the act of observing does interfere with it and forms what they call the waveform collapse. So, for example, how do you look at that electron beam to see which slit it's going through? Well, look, what's the word looking? Looking is shining a light at something, isn't it? And so when you're shining a light, you're putting photons on it, and therefore that's forcing it to collapse into one thing or the other. But I have my own personal theory, which is I'm a believer in the many worlds theory, and I believe that what's actually happening is you've got everything happening at the same time, but your experience is one path. So the you that's sitting here now, you're the you that's followed the path to get to you here. If that makes sense, I'm probably not making sense. But the other paths, they happen, but they're not here because they're in the other universes or the other dimensions. That to me is the only way to explain it. And so what's happening with what they call waveform collapse, which is where it's forced to behave as a particle because you looked at it, it is that it's you observing it in the path where it was this. Whereas there's another you doing the experiment where it was the other thing,
Yes.
if that makes sense. But obviously, you're here now to describe the one that you saw because you're that you, if that makes sense. You're not the other you. But there's the other one, if you see what I mean. So I use the
It makes
lottery
you
winner
think of
example.
it makes you think of what happens if you got cloned. We have the same attributes, the same kind of thinking as you.
Well, no, we twins are more or less a clone, aren't they? But actually, no, the twins are a bad example because the
Yeah,
twins
yeah.
got different experiences and will have different neurons. So I mean, it's difficult to know what would happen if you were cloned, and whether you would be the same soul or have the same process. I mean, it goes back to that thought experiment about the artificial neuron. That at what point do you stop being you? How many neurons do I have to remove and replace with an electronic one? And is there a point at which that ceases to be? Well, we wouldn't all be here. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for quantum physics, because there is actually a stage in the nuclear fusion in the sun. It's actually not as simple as just two heliums fusing. There's a whole there's something happening at a subatomic level, but there's one stage in the process that has a quantum stage, and it causes a slight delay in the reaction. That delay is why we're here, because if that delay wasn't there, the sun would have burnt out billions of years ago. Well, like 2 billion years ago or something. It would have burnt out a long time ago, and there wouldn't have been enough time for us to evolve. That's the scientific explanation. If it wasn't for this slight delay in this step, so we owe our existence to quantum physics.
In your belief paradigm, yeah. In your belief paradigm.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
In my belief paradigm, we owe our existence to quantum physics, and plus, atoms wouldn't behave in the way that they need to for us to exist.
Would you maybe put that in that if they say that it could fit the Genesis account because the sun was only created on the fourth day? So that is like, could be seen as that delay, as you would just spoke about.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that argue that the Bible shouldn't be taken literally, and it's metaphorical, and things mean things. So maybe the 6,000 years wasn't. Maybe a year was a different time reference. Because I mean, a year's got its problems, hasn't it? Because what is a year? A year is how long it takes for the Earth to orbit the sun once, and even that's not actually sacrosanct, because there's different types of ways of measuring that. Are you measuring when it comes back to exactly the same point, or are you measuring the number of rotations, because it may not be exactly that rotational point. Even a day, they can't agree on what a day is, because a day could be the time it takes to come back to the same point relative to the sun, but then because the Earth's moving at the same time, then it will actually not come back to exactly that same point. So the day will be slightly longer on one measurement compared to another measurement. So basically, the long and short of it is we can't agree on these time frames. So what does 6,000 years even mean? And a day used to be different, because the moon has been acting as a brake on the Earth, and so it used to spin a lot faster than it does now. So a day used to last. I mean, at one point, I think it probably lasted 10 hours or something instead of 24 hours. So if the day is different, then the year is going to be different as well, isn't it? So 6,000 years might be.
Yeah, and that's why you also get a lot of
epoch.
even the Christians today. You get a lot of them that think the days in Genesis was like 1,000 days or 1,000 years for. Yeah.
And the let there be light. Let there be light could be a
Yeah,
metaphor
so-
for the Big Bang. Although the light didn't come straight away, according to Big Bang theory, it's you had the plasma, didn't you? And then the light sort of came later.
He says I should ask you, would you like to live forever?
That's a very
Yeah,
interesting
for you,
question.
yeah.
Is that for me or for you? Sorry. Would I like to live forever? In some ways, yes, obviously, because I want to see how things evolve, how computers evolve, how our knowledge evolves. But maybe I wouldn't like to live forever, because I then experience the collapse of the Earth, unless I can escape to another planet, because the Earth won't remain habitable forever. It will change, and we'll have to find another. If we still exist, I don't believe we'll still be around then. I believe we'll destroy ourselves, or something will happen, some natural event will happen that will destroy the human race and wipe out everything that we've created. So we probably won't get to that stage. But yeah, it's a difficult one. Maybe not forever is very long, isn't it? So I would like to live for a long time, but maybe not
Okay,
forever.
then what would be your ideal age, I would say?
So I would probably say a few thousand years, so you can really see. Are there? I want to find out, are there aliens out there? We probably will discover that at some point. I believe there are aliens, because I think it's just difficult to believe we would be unique in having life here. I think life's very rare, and I think intelligent life's particularly rare. I think life might not be quite so rare, but intelligent life is going to be very rare indeed, and very valuable.
It's interesting.
Very precious.
Very interesting. But yeah, I don't see any more questions. Do you have any questions, or
Do I have any questions? I suppose the classic is a bit of a cheap point, perhaps. But then, what would it take for you to change your mind? And are you open to changing your mind that you might be wrong, and actually evolution might be the right theory, and that creationism might be wrong?
No, I think I've looked into it too much to be exhausted to change my mind, especially because my belief system is based on God. I think I've made up my mind that it's going to be difficult to say, okay, I believe evolution. Although you do get evolution Christians today. You do get people that do, but I
Yeah.
don't see how it gels together. And because I take Genesis 1 literal, I guess it's going to be, I can't be open to it, you know what I mean? Because it would be going against my own standards of how I understand the word, the Bible, and on what I believe. So I would be dishonest for me to say, yeah, I'm open to changing to evolution, because I can't accept it because it doesn't fit with what I observe and
It's
scripture.
yeah. In some ways, that's quite honest, because rather than shoehorning, which is what some people do, there are these people out there that, oh yeah, but evolution is not incompatible with the Bible, and they try and explain it, and then they end up distorting the Bible in a way to try and get it to fit this, or they might stop the people, what I call the stop shorters, the ones that they adopt they borrow from Darwin, but not take all of it. And okay, well, there's evolution at some level, but not at that level. And I think it's either or. I agree
Yeah,
with you.
exactly.
It's either.
I can answer for
Either or.
Kent, for Eric. For Kent, I think he is sincere.
Yes, it's in my own mind. But I think the words "in your own mind," it doesn't just mean am I sincere. I think it means
To intent.
do I
Yeah.
have any doubts myself? I don't really have any doubts about natural selection. I don't really have any doubts that Darwin was on the right track and it's more or less correct. Where I've got the doubts is that what I think is the Achilles heel of evolution, which is that start, the spark. It's very badly explained, and it counterintuitive that could come about. But then I fall back on the other point, which is just because you can't explain something doesn't mean it didn't happen. And just because you don't know how it happened doesn't mean it didn't happen. So there could be something we don't know yet about the Earth's formation. And maybe it is just a fluke. I mean, flukes do happen. Just because something's a fluke doesn't mean it couldn't happen.
I agree.
And don't forget, we're here. That I was going to mention the lottery analogy. So the lottery winner thinks, wow, the odds were 1 in 14 million for me to win the lottery. And here I am with the ticket. That it's more likely, this stupid argument, it's more likely that he would be hit by an asteroid than win the lottery. But he still won. But he's there to tell you the tale. You see what I mean? So we're here to tell you the tale that life is very unique and rare, and the Earth is very special, and it's all marvelous. And how did it all come about? It must have been God. But then when you think about how many planets and stars and everything there must be, it would be difficult to imagine it wouldn't happen at some point. And we're here to tell the tale. So we're what's the word? We are biased because we're here to tell the tale. If it, for those worlds where it didn't happen, we're not there to tell the tale. So of course, um, it's happened here, and we think it's, how could it have happened? Well, how could the lottery winner win? But you
With
still won.
chance.
That's how, yeah. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So yeah, I think this was a great discussion, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, I think this one
The
probably even
first
more
one.
so than the flat Earth one.
This
Yeah,
is more
because this
theological
crosses
kind
a
of
number of
beliefs. So I do enjoy
yeah.
this theological chats. We must just decide what's gonna be our next discussion. Um, but
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
have to think of something.
but I do really
Um,
enjoy
but
this.
uh, but yeah, in a sense, on a debate, you have to you pick a side, don't you? And then you argue in favour of that. And it might be, maybe that
Yeah,
was
because now we
question
do
about the debate.
understand we're not going to change others' minds. We do have two total different
No,
spectrums, but I think people were expecting us to fight with each other. No, that's, that's not what
no,
we're here for. Um,
no, and especially for this topic, it's not. It's one that can have two different
mhm.
viewpoints, can't it? Brilliant. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much for having me as usual. And yeah, I can't wait
Definitely, man. I
for the next one.
appreciate you. Thank you for reaching out, and we're definitely going to do this again. You rock, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. All
Just
right, same
appreciate
to you. Thanks,
everything,
you. Thanks
and
so much.
all the best of luck, man. Hey, guys, that was great. Yeah, Kent actually did an awesome job. Although we don't agree for sure, and yes, he's made up his mind on the things. I do think he's sincere, and I do um, enjoy the discussions we do have. Obviously, he is very influenced with what the world says and believes, but I think this is more along the lines of sow a seed and let it grow. Um, I do like Kent a lot, and I think he's a great guy. Got nothing against him. So yeah, guys, there is my link to come in. You guys want to come in and chat for about, I think we got about an hour before I have to go. So hey, Rich Joe, good to see you. Where is it? How's it going, man? And I just want to say thank you to people that have sent the super chats, hit the likes, and just participated in the Q&As. I really appreciated it. You guys rock. Appreciate all the support. Hey, Rich, are you able to talk now? Is that what you wanted, Oink?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. What's up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, how you doing, man? Long time no speak to.
Yeah. I was wondering, where are you? I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, I've been just hanging out in the chat, but yeah, but I try to turn off the chat a little bit to focus on this conversation because a lot of Globers is in the chat trying to argue with me. That's why it's kind of like I can't like let myself be seen in the chat, but I'm always watching. But as far as the conversation, what you think about it? I thought it was pretty good.
That was cordial. Like I said, this is like, I remember the last debate we had about Flat Earth. It was cordial and stuff. And when you reached out to me again, it's like, oh yeah, I'd love to have, because I actually like talking to the guy. It's a guy I can definitely get along with well, even though we have very different views.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah, because he always pretty pleasant though, and at least
yeah,
he's open to listen and to hear your side of the
exactly.
spectrum as
And I
well.
wish we have more people like that able to talk. I mean, look at the disgusting behavior from the guy last night. It's like
Yeah,
he
and he was
brought out
and
the
he was
bad.
pretty honest too.
Yeah.
So
So
I
yeah,
mean,
guys, I
he
just
was
have to apologize for last night for getting so triggered. It's just so much on my mind right now, and this guy just wound me up
yeah,
the wrong way, because he acts like a child, doesn't stop lying about me, doesn't stop misrepresenting, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
all
But
he
that's what they
does.
got to do, right? I mean, if they can't stick to the topic, the next thing,
Mhm.
the next best. I mean, it's not the next best thing, but to them, the next best thing is to attack you personally.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know if they think that gets you off your game, and I see that a lot now. It's just most of the videos that they make about you guys is just personal. It's not even like videos on what you guys even said, and even if when they try to say, well, this is what he said, you come to find out once you look at the channel, it turns out it's not even true what you guys said. It's just a personal attack, and then this is what he said, which is usually a lie. So yeah, I think it's just check out Flatzoid's channel. If you guys want to actually hear what he do say and not look at what the person is saying about him, because it's not, most of the time it's not true.
And that's the thing that happens all the time. They cherry pick things, and then the people get only one side of the argument. This is why I usually ask the people, do you think it's honest of you only to get one side of an argument instead of going to the source and asking what's their side of the story? And 90% of the time, which is sad, they don't want to hear the other side. They've already got their biased decision made, so they only take the false
Right,
narrative
right,
because it suits their agenda.
right. And which most of the time when they had these discussions with you face to face, which like what we seen, is usually a straw man, because the
Mm.
straw man didn't come from you, or it didn't even come from them. It literally came from some other guy that have a personal problem with you for some whatever reason, and this is just what they heard on the internet, and they said, well, Flatzoid, I know you said this, and it's just like, no, I didn't say that. That's just a straw man. You putting them
Yeah,
words in my mouth. It's not my
yeah,
point,
it's usually
or
that
that's
way.
not what I mean when I said that. And instead of listening to you and listen to
The
what do
context.
you actually mean, they'd rather just say, no, Flats, you said this, so you're wrong.
Exactly. That is how it usually is. Uh, but yeah, but it was good having you. So what you been up to doing lately? Got any plans for the futures going on? Or?
Yeah, that's just, it's just really frustrating at times. That's all. Sometimes, yeah. That's why it's such a breath of fresh air to hear. I keep on forgetting his name, to come on here today and hear a honest conversation. Sometimes, I mean, he was even honest enough to say like, yeah, we really can't explain that, and he was even
Yeah,
honest enough to say like, yeah, it is kind of a theory, and I believe in it. So it's not like he's saying he got absolute proof of this to be true. He's just saying this is something that he believes,
yeah,
which that's the best you're gonna get out of that conversation anyway. Like you said, you're
exactly.
not changing nobody's minds, but
Yeah, no, I've accepted that, but when I've accepted that already because he has made up his mind. But there is some hope since he has realized that there is at least a God. Though he doesn't agree that it's the biblical God, that's another debate for another time.
right,
Uh,
right, right.
but yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of like a stepping stone. Well, I
exactly.
know. I mean, there's nothing else that can explain nature or anything in this world or realm or whatever they want to call it. We know it has to be created by intelligent design somehow. I mean,
Hmm.
however you want to paint it, even in evolution, there's a lot of things that they can't explain. It has to be intelligent design, because that's pretty much all we see. Those are the only natural examples that we actually do see that takes place. So at least
Exactly.
most of them is honest enough to admit that. So, but it is a breath of fresh air to hear an honest conversation sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's really true. Well, guys, there is the link if anybody wants to come in and have discussion. Um, yes, you can ask me a question, Eric, anytime. Go ahead. Uh, but yeah, I think you've been realizing I've kind of giving Flatter some back burner kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh
Concentrating
yeah,
more,
yeah, yeah,
more on Christian things.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know if you've realized, but the flat Earth arena kind of thing has become very Karen like lately.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
everybody's getting pissed off with everybody. Everybody's offending everybody nonstop, and
Yeah, I
it's
mean, yeah,
getting old.
it's like I said earlier, it's getting personal now for no reason. It and it's like I guess it all started with the Will guy, right? The famous pastor. So and then you have Jaren and all these guys. So and then it's just a
Which
lot
is
of
sad, yeah.
right. So
But
then it's a
I
lot of
still,
lies about people. So it's just yeah, it's
yeah.
time to
Look, I still do touch on flat Earth, but I think my focus now is spiritual things, especially because in the time we are now, I think it's more important at this moment.
right. And not to keep taking shots at the pastor, but you would think that this point of view or this is what he should have been focused on the whole time, right? So it
Yeah,
shouldn't be so much being focused as a debunker. That was kind of one of the things I said in one of my videos is like, yeah, as a pastor, what should be your main focus? Your fellow man's souls and whether they're gonna come to the realization of knowing what the Trinity is or knowing that Jesus is the only way to reach heaven and all that, or is it debunking flat earthers?
yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying as well. It's like he spent so much money not to further the kingdom of God. He spent so much money to make a whole deception. You know what I mean? And look at all the negative things that's come out of his deception from this. Um, all he's done is sow seeds of, I'd say, negative, and that's all that's practically coming out of this whole thing. Where, as a pastor, I think it's a really not a good thing that he's done. I think it would have been much more productive for him to have taken that 100 grand or whatever he spent
Yeah,
and used it for the kingdom, because that's where his passion's supposed to lie. But it shows you his intentions is not really
yeah. What is
putting God
priorities?
first. You know what I mean? His priorities is not God. His
Yes,
priorities is some weird obsession and hatred towards flat Earth.
I don't know if these guys. I don't know if is it he want to get fame from this or because, like I said, it's. I mean, it's kind of like the algorithm of YouTube for a little bit too, because I mean, you could just become a flat Earth debunker. And that's what I mean. They call each other now, flat Earth debunker, and then you get a lot of popularity overnight, and you're getting your popularity based off of the work of the flat earther. But
Yeah,
YouTube is not going to acknowledge that because all of the work that you're putting in on YouTube, YouTube is only going to show the detractors of your work. So really, they just making their living. I mean, where their internet living or their YouTube career off of flat Earth work, which means they need the flat earther to be there
exactly,
in order for them to even become successful because of the flat earther,
exactly.
which is
And
all
that's
just
why I've been that's why I've been starving them of my content lately.
yeah,
What are they really doing? They can't do anything with me now, so they find every kind of thing they can, and they've like, you know, trying to hitch onto anybody they can with
right,
anything that they can get, because that's what their content's made out of, flat earth. If
right,
there is no flat earthers giving them the light of Davidson, they have no content.
right, and it's and which like I said, and which that's it seems like that's what it is, and it's not equal. It's more like I think we really wouldn't mind that, okay, we if we could feed off each other.
But
If the thing if it was
it's one-sided though. That's the
it's a
problem.
one-sided yeah, that's the point.
We
That's the point.
fighting an uphill battle. You
Right,
understand? So if we want to use some of their content, it's much more harder for us to get that content out there and use it than what they are using our content for. It's
exactly.
grifting, exactly, Cole.
Exactly. And I think that's what he got attracted to more so than him being a pastor, right?
Hmm.
He got attracted to being around people like Mattoon and these guys that's making these big careers and they going on what is it, modern day debate, and then modern day debate is putting these guys on like bigger little platforms, and now he has a career instead of him being a pastor, something that he should be focused on. And I believe what's the name called him out on this too when he had the discussion with him. Instead of you being focused on or having a priority for God, it seemed like you're replacing that for the priority for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And what do it say is what do it say about that in the scriptures? If you really study the scriptures, right? You're not supposed to put your focus to flesh. You're supposed to put your focus to God, to spirit. And it's sad that a flat earther had to basically remind you of that, or have to preach to you. And it seems like we're basically utilizing the scriptures more than you, when we actually supposed to be looking to you for
Mm-hmm.
guidance in the scriptures. So yeah, I think I mean, that's what I was trying to accomplish with the video that I was making. Like, okay, why is you spending all of your money and focusing on this? When a lot of flat earthers actually told you that this experiment is not an experiment, it's not even going to be valid
A false
whatsoever.
dichotomy, yeah.
It's a false dichotomy. It's affirming the consequence fallacy. It's an illogical fallacy. It's not really going to do nothing anyway. But we're willing to have that conversation with you. And then instead of you actually having a conversation with some of us, we could just use Flatzoid as an example. Instead of him having a conversation, he decided to attack Flatzoid personally with videos and
Well, he did,
things
yeah.
in that nature, and basically attack other flat earthers too. Said they was broke and all that kind of stuff. So we letting you know.
One thing they don't understand. I mean, I could have easily many times I said, guys, you know what? I'm not going to be a flat earther anymore. I'm going to do Jaren. I'm just going to switch. I'm going to be now a flat earth debunker, and my channel will skyrocket. But why
Right.
will I do something like that when I'm for truth? You know,
Right.
how will I? I won't be able to cope with myself after a few months. You know what I mean? I'll feel so guilty. It's like I'm
Right. You
doing
want to
that
be able
just
to live
drifting.
with yourself. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the shift I've taken now has really hurt my channel a lot. But that's like I was saying, it's because of truth. I'm not in this for the intentions that people are trying to make me out to be. I'm literally sincere enough to tell you guys, listen, yeah, this is what I care about, and I'm only here for truth. So
Yeah.
the fact
Yeah.
that
Nobody's
people are
trying to get
trying,
rich.
yeah, the fact that they're saying nonsense like that is like beyond
Yeah.
me.
The literally the narrative is that Flatzoid want to keep his viewer and like what was it? It's about your viewership or something like that. Like, oh yeah, he want to save face to keep his viewership, and he's want to make this change. Like dude, if it was really about that, we all could look at YouTube and just randomly search flat earth. We're going to see just debunkers. So if
Mhm.
you looking at that, the obvious thing to do is not to become the flat earthers, because we know there's flat earthers on YouTube. The obvious thing to do is to become the debunker. So if
Exactly.
Flatzoid or any of us was actually trying to, become like a big time YouTuber, or care about viewership, or care about how many people look at us and all that, we would become a debunker. We wouldn't become just stick to being a flat earth. Like that would have been our
Exactly.
way out with Jaren. Like, okay, we seen
Exactly.
it, they seen it. Okay, we no longer a flat earther. We with Jaren.
I mean, think about it. I could have even just done this. I could have just said, guys, I'm not going to do this channel anymore. And I just started a whole different nameless channel. I probably would have had like 30K subs by now. I would have had everything because I would have been debunking flat earth for what?
Right.
But
Yes.
no, my time and effort goes into this channel, which I do feel is where God wants me to go, where He's leading me to go. So,
Yep. And I've seen nothing wrong. Okay, MA's here.
yeah,
Hey,
misinformation. Hey, how's it going?
fine. How you been? I think you're looking kind of sad.
No, I'm just a
Well,
bit
it's pretty late
tired
in
because,
Africa.
yeah, it's like,
So if I can, a quick question. Uh, I think you're trying to see an arrow in your ways why you never apologize for stuff that you did?
See, Rich Joe, this is exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. What would be
Yes,
the example? Of,
I
So
am giving you the opportunity right now.
So I'm giving you the opportunity to play honest now. Okay. What am I supposed to apologize for exactly?
For example, for the Lisbeth incident, it would end much quicker if you simply said, I did it, I know, I
But I
apologize
didn't.
for it.
But I didn't
You
do
did
anything
it,
wrong.
but you did it.
What did I do?
Do you want to go over again the 4-hour stream that made you rebrand to your current name and therefore you started changing all the channel because people came and brought you evidence about you talking about Lisbeth in a certain way? It is not just her. You know that. You've been lying
Okay.
about
Let me let
Duffy.
me let me
You've been
say
lying
something to
about
you.
Jaren. You've been lying about people all the time. You need to take responsibility for your actions.
Okay,
And
what did I lie about?
I don't need to give you
you
examples
you kind of
again
do because you're kind of
what you
making a
lied
lot of
about.
claims.
You
I'm
When you,
know
making a
what
lot
you
of
lied
claims.
about.
No, I didn't lie about anything. You guys misrepresenting and lying about me, saying I said things which I didn't say.
People made whole channels
they did.
about you lying about people.
Okay, go get them.
We
Forget
can
him.
simply open any evidence
Yeah.
of
Okay.
anyone, and you know that.
Do you know
Jojo,
what
please don't
This is
talk.
something that you should have brought when you got here. Like
do you
you
know
don't have it now.
I brought it. He will not play it. It doesn't
do you
matter right
do you,
now.
do you know what
I'm
misrepresentation and cherry picking is, misinformation agent?
Yes, of course I know. But the thing is,
So
I
so no
watched
no no.
your. I
Would you would
watched.
you would
I
wait? Would you
watched.
let me talk?
No, you.
Would you let me make a statement on my own channel while you literally saying idiotic lies about me right now?
I'm literally
So
asking you.
I
Are
no,
you
you're not asking
willing
me.
to
You
take
are making
responsibility
you're making
for your
claims.
actions?
Yeah, he is. He's making wild
You're
accusations.
making claims that you
Uh,
haven't brought evidence for. So will you bring your evidence, please?
Again,
Okay.
before I present my evidence,
And
before we
then you
talk
got an
about
agenda
anything,
behind it.
are
Okay.
you grown enough to take
Okay.
responsibility
Misinformation.
for
Misinformation.
your actions?
Okay. Misinformation. Ma. Not only you making a claim that
Are
he's
you his
lying about
lawyer?
people. Okay,
Are
wait a
you
minute.
his lawyer?
I got you.
Uh,
But not only
Shut
you
the
making it.
fuck up.
Oh, now I gotta
You're
shut up. Oh, why you cussing on
I
the man's
removed
channel?
him. There we go.
Yeah, but not only you making claims about him lying on people, you also making the claim that he had the agenda to change his channel about the lies, as if he's like hiding. If he was hiding, he wouldn't even come on the internet anymore.
It's weird. I'm right here with my face. I'm showing exactly. I'm explaining everything which is going on. But you see the what's going on here. I'm asking him, okay, you've just made a very disgusting claim, a very false claim. Back it up. No, I don't need to. That's my whole this is the whole thing we're trying to say. Everybody keeps saying things I've done and things I've done. But when I ask them, okay, back it up, you know what they bring? Cherry picked misrepresentation lie videos. That's all they bring. And who
Yeah.
started this defamation character thing? McToon.
Yeah, of course.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because he took a statement out of context and presented intent. Would anybody even have known about that thing if he didn't bring it up? No,
Of
because
course.
it was literally taken out of context.
And then he's saying that people have channels dedicated to it.
Oh, there's many channels dedicated. They literally create accounts and channels just to obsess over me.
Right, but all you would have to do is bring at least one of those channels. I mean, you don't have to show it, but hey, I could look at this privately and I could see what you're talking about, and then I could say, okay, this, and then you could hear my side of it. But it goes back to what we was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
People basically they make accusations against you. and because they got a nice size audience, the audience believes it.
Exactly.
And then they'll come on there and say, "You lied about this. You did this. You did this. You did this." Well, wait a minute. Hold on. This is my side of the story, and here's the actual video that I have. Do you want to look at? No, I don't want to look at it.
It's exactly that. They only
Shut the
listen
f
to
up,
one
Reg
side of the
Joe.
story.
Like, okay.
But that's the thing. They only listen to one side of the story. They don't even know what's going on. They don't listen to the other side of the story. Everybody I've asked about this thing, have you actually watched my stream on it? No. So
I've
what
been
must I
trying
do?
to figure out because people been talking about it in the atmosphere for a while. And every time I say, like, well, okay, what'd he say? Oh, look at the video. I say, well, what did he say in the video? Oh, what he lied about her. Like, what particular? I'm still waiting for the particular part or which he which you lied about because I'm is. And then
Yeah, it's
like, oh, well,
actually
you don't
sad.
believe him? You on his side? Okay, well, this trying to
You
get
see,
your side.
the context of the discussion we had on that live stream was the Mason rituals. And because we say that those guys are Masons, they had an agenda to try and get her there. That was it. Not saying she was there for that, not saying she is what a village bicycle, not saying she went to do anything there. It was just
Right.
simply a remark based on the context of the discussion. That was it. Now they go and they misrepresent it and say, I'm calling her a village bicycle. You see? Because why? He only cuts out that piece and misrepresents it.
Like
So it's
but even if
childish.
you are saying they have the agenda there, how are you lying on her?
Yeah, no, they're saying I'm specifically attacking her. They're saying I'm calling her a prostitute and a village boy, which is total nonsense. I mean, I've said it many times. We don't even know anything about
Yeah,
Lisbeth.
Elizabeth, right?
Yeah, we don't even
Elizabeth.
know anything about her.
Yeah, like nobody really know anything about her. She's not from like YouTube. She even says so. She's
Yeah,
she's from an audio app. She's from Clubhouse.
and then later on, people started sending me emails with stuff from her and Jaren and pictures that she's apparently sent to Jaren and all that stuff. And then, well, the people pushed me to show it on a stream, and I showed it. They didn't like it, and then they said I lied. It's like
About
I'm just showing you
Interesting.
what's presented to me because that's
Yeah.
I don't know anything about her. That's it.
Yeah, well, I could clear that. Well, I could clear the airways up real fast because I do know Lisbeth a little bit. She's from Clubhouse. She's from an audio app that's on the phone. She's with a certain group where she was one of the founders of a certain group called Flat Earth Gang. That's with a couple of other people. It's a couple of other people that's actually there, but she's one of the founders of those people. And a lot of the newer people that we seeing right now is just newer people that's coming from the internet. Like it's a Jamaican guy. His name 10 on that audio app, but I think he's calling himself by a different name now. A lot of those people that's coming from them audio apps, they're changing their names. So she's one of those people, and she just randomly, I don't know how Will Duffy contacted her. I don't know how Jaren contacted her. The only person that I seen in that audio app was actually I think Witsit. So I don't know how they contacted her and just picked her to just do this. Even she said it in her own
But
app
that's
that it was kind of weird that she was
yeah,
the
but
guy.
that's
She was the one that got picked.
but that's what we were trying to point out. It's very odd that this person from nowhere gets pointed. She was pointed for a reason. Now,
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of people that applied for it, which I think would have better suited that thing. I mean, I would have rather had Josh Mundega or Brian Leakey. You know what I mean? Because I would trust them more than
Yeah.
just some woman that just
Yeah.
got contacted out of nowhere. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So
And
to us,
she's
it was
very
very
new to the
suspicious.
topic too.
Yeah, it was very suspicious.
She's very new to the topic as well. And like I said, they from an audio app, so it's like she don't know the arguments as good, but she's more of like a on like Witsit Globebuster side. So it's more of she's more of those type of. But even then, like even her, if you want to use her as an example, that's a bad example because she's not like a glober. She didn't turn. She's still a flat earther. She still got flat earth gain on the audio app, and she think it, and she, and also she think she know that it's a affirmative consequence because I personally explained it to her, and I mean she could probably come on here and say for herself her experience when she went down there and all that kind of stuff, but she did come out of nowhere. So it's, I mean, how can you lie on somebody you don't know? It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably like the most closest thing on like YouTube that know a little bit about her because even on the audio app, like that's new. So she just came, they really just came out of nowhere on that audio app. But even though they've been there for a while, but no like prominent flat earthers know who they are like that. So yes, of course, it would look kind of suspicious. It should have
Mhm.
got
But that's why I said I have nothing really to apologize for other than bringing her into the discussion thanks to McToon. He's the one that should be apologizing because he's
yeah,
the one spreading the fake news around that everybody's calling her village bicycle.
yeah.
So people
Just trying to cause division, bro. That's
exactly. So
yeah,
people should actually be calling him disgusting because he's the one pushing this agenda around, not the other way around.
yeah. Because he the one that know who she is. So she was introduced to them, and she been
Mhm.
around them. So it's like she the one that she been around them more than she been around you. So you don't know who she is. You don't know if she's a false global. You don't know if she's like a Randy. So you don't know what's going on with her. So there's no reason for him to be attacking you. If anything, they need to be going at Mattoon. He the one that put it out there in the first place, and he the one that know who she is. Who she is. She been on Jaren's channel a few times. But other than that, like nobody know who Lisbeth is really, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you got no. I never
But
sent you
that's
say
all they
anything
got at the
crazy.
end of the day.
Yeah. So yeah, that's crazy. But I don't know why would misinformation bring that up?
Because misinformation always has an agenda to how can I say? He's like a McToon wannabe.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
But do misinformation? I mean miss calling them miss. But do agent know who this who Lisbeth is? Has he even had any conversations with Lisbeth? Because for him to say that, I never heard Lisbeth say anything about Flatzoid at all.
That's the
She's
thing.
not mad at it.
But that's what I'm saying. Why hasn't she just come to talk to me herself if it's like if I've really done something so bad to her?
Right, because I
How can
didn't
I do something bad to someone I've never met?
right, and I don't think she even unless like I said,
And she's
it's
probably
kind of
seen it. She's
causing
probably seen
division.
her. I can guarantee you, McToon and FTV, and they're probably they've been trying to push this to her. So did you hear what Flatwood said, kind of thing. But
Yeah,
I
which
think,
would be sad. Yeah.
but I mean, if she really did feel offended by this misinformation, I think she would have come and spoke to me by now,
Yeah,
and
I
then I
think
could have
she don't believe
explained to
them.
her.
I think she don't believe them. Because they
Yeah,
said they got rumors about her too, and
yeah,
that little
that's the
group
thing.
they got.
It's all just misinformation that they send. So I got
Yeah,
nothing to apologize for other than I'm sorry she was brought into it by someone misinterpreting and cherry picking and misrepresenting what was said.
right. And then
So yeah,
another thing is, why would you change your channel? What, like, where'd that come from?
my channel I changed because I felt I didn't want to be part of all this negativity and things anymore. Because lately, I don't know, even Flat Earth with Flat Earth, people are fighting all the time with each other. People are just literally being negative. And I've been feeling for a while, if you look through my content for the last at least a year and a half, I've been trying to bring more Christian content into my channel because I do feel I've been led to do more Christians things. And well, one day, not too long ago, I woke up at like 3 o'clock and I just did what God told me to do. Just
Yeah,
told
but
me, just do what I'm doing. So I still do Flat Earth content. It's just on the backbone. It's not the main goal on the channel anymore.
And yeah, and nothing, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I mean, there is no reason for someone that you don't know, or not to put any words in your mouth, but I don't see any reason of why, like what he's talking about, Elizabeth will have anything to do with that, because Elizabeth don't care about that, as far as what
Yeah,
I see.
but also I think people should also grow up. I think people should realize that people can also say things, and the fact that they are getting so offended by something that's not true anyway about someone else they don't even know, what's their motive? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's
And then
creepy. It's creepy to say the least that you get people on the internet, people that don't know another person from a bar of soap, and they're going out their way to try and be their superhero.
honestly, I think
That's stalker
like
like.
not to put Asian in it, but it seemed like Asian didn't even know the context of it. So
Yeah. It's very stalker like.
yeah, so
I mean, if it was the other way around, that something was said to me or whatever, and these people are always all trying to like defend me and go hardcore against that person saying something, like I would literally tell them, listen here, stop being so obsessed with them. Don't worry what other people think.
I would be honest, you're the one that got the rumor against you. I mean, the whole you taking the frames out the camera, and
They're still going, and every time it's like, okay, I can show you every video I've got. I've got all the frames in the
right,
video.
that would have been a time to change your channel. Because
But
that's
yeah,
like the biggest
I
thing
leave
that
it
we,
up as a testimony to show how disingenuous they are. That's all.
right, like, so this right
Because you
here is
do get
nothing.
people that are honest and they look at the stuff and they're like, okay, yeah, I actually see both sides of the argument. Then obviously you get these other morons on the internet, which that's why I don't care about the opinion. You just deleted 11 frames, blah blah blah. It's like, no, here's all the frames. But if you don't want to accept it's your problem. I'm keeping it up to show you that you're just
Like,
talking
that's
on.
literally like a topic in all your debates.
Is
So
11
it's
frames.
like that's will be a time to like change the channel. There's no reason to change the channel
Mhm.
after that.
Yeah,
I don't see
exactly.
nothing that's that big to change the channel for.
And the sad thing about that is when this came up, Reds was too scared to talk to me, and he still is. Till this day, he still doesn't want to talk about it.
So I mean, that should let you know right there. Like, I mean, I can't even face my accuser at this point.
I mean, what? It's been what, 7 years, and he's still
Yeah,
he's too afraid
yeah,
to talk to me about it.
yeah. That video, like,
It's
what,
like,
7
what's
years
wrong with
old?
you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You talk to everybody else about it yet, right? I mean, at least you got fight the tight shirt to say like, oh, well, I don't want to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, but
That's
at
it.
least he had the decency to understand what was the context of everything, and he could
Right,
see, okay, yeah, look, what I was showing was what I said.
right. Oh
So
man, yeah, yeah. There's no reason to change your channel because of that. I mean, you didn't really change the channel. I mean,
I'm still Flatzoid.
yeah. So it's not like you
My
changed your
focus is
name,
just different. That's all.
right? So I mean, it's still half flat Earth content. It's just not the toxic part.
And that's the thing. The people are like, oh, you said you're not going to do flat Earth anymore. I said, no, I'm not going to engage with the anti-flat Earthers anymore. And I'm doing biblical cosmology, which is flat Earth. So the fact that they don't get that is
Well, yeah,
alarming.
they should know that that is your, that's what you think it is. So, you
Hmm.
know, that's what you've proven. You're not actually proving like a flat Earth in a sense of without the scriptures involved. So that's
Yeah,
not
to me, it's
really it's
biblically
not even a
based.
change.
Yeah, to me, it's biblically based. So it's still the same.
It's not even a change. So
Mhm.
it's just putting more focus on that part.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, his channel have not changed. He's just putting more focus on biblical cosmology. Something that he already announced before he even made this change, honestly. What was that, a
Exactly.
year ago? It was like a year ago when you announced that you're gonna
When I
start
wanted to
focusing
start
more.
doing it, and then I officially
Yeah,
announced it a few months ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's not even a change, bro.
But But yeah, it's internet is a
It
sad
was
thing.
acting like you was running scared for a minute, Flats. Like, oh yeah, Flatzoid had to change his channel, and that's
If
one of
any,
their little talking points.
well, let me put it this way, Reg. Out of knowing me how many years now, my character have I been one to cower away from anything?
Oh, not that I think.
I mean, I always take things head on. That's who I am.
Right. And I mean, yeah, based on the content that you providing, I mean, anybody could come up here now. Anybody could come up here anytime and, voice their opinion or whatever they and hear it out. But yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
sad.
well, Miss, I hope you misinformation. I hope you got to hear that, and I hope you you know, now you hear his side of the story. Is you going to actually look at it and listen to it, or is you going to acknowledge it, or you just going to believe what someone else say that you didn't know, somebody you don't know? And I have had interactions with Lisbeth a lot of times, and every time I talked to her, she didn't say anything bad about Flatzoid at all.
But like I said, I would
So
even have a discussion with Elizabeth. I really don't mind.
right,
And I think we can have a cordial discussion because I'm telling you, she's not even getting offended by this. It's everybody else getting offended on her behalf.
right. And then she could say herself like, "Hey, nobody tried to make me be a Mason or anything. Whatever you guys." It's so many. I mean, it's so many things I heard about that. It's just wow. So it's just I ain't see none of it. I ain't see any proof about it. But if agent have any proof, I mean, he should have brought it, and then that way we could look at it and we could say, okay, Flatzoid, what did you mean by this? And all you could do is just listen to what the guy say he mean by it, and you could go from there. I mean, who you going to believe? You're going to believe the guy that actually said
But
it, or
that's the problem. He's got an agenda. That's why when you ask him, okay, come and present it to us. No, I don't have to. Yeah, because he's got an agenda. He knows if he has to present it, he's going to be shown a liar.
well, there you go, Ma. That's a challenge, bro. We're
So yeah,
waiting.
it's sad. What's up, Roger? Good to see you, man. Put this. But yeah, like I said, I have nothing against Elizabeth. I don't even know from a bar of soap. So I know nothing about her. Why would I want to be
Offensive,
disgusting towards her?
right?
Hansel, thank you for the 5 Australia. It says, not anyone. There are a number of Globers who would love to talk to Keith. They're banned. That's a lie. I
What?
only have 2 people banned on my channel. Well, 3 now. Because those people are obsessed people that literally are stalkers.
Yeah, yeah. They doing
They
something that's
they
in,
and they
yeah.
crossed the line again, which got them banned. That was
Yeah,
it.
and then there's nothing wrong with banning people off of your channel. So I mean, if someone
So
does
yeah,
something to interrupt it, then yeah, of course it's going to
so
get
yeah,
you.
I've got 3 people banned on my channel.
Yeah,
That's now
so
all of a sudden everybody.
that's not all the Globers, and then you a Glober yourself, so you're not banned.
So yeah, and it's sad that people actually have to create stock accounts to do that. But thank you for supporting me with the super chat. Just to lie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and then you could support the channel by coming up and telling us who was banned besides the 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of Globers is in there. So in the chat right now, they're not banned.
Yep.
So I mean, it's just a lot of narratives that's being pointed out for no reason. It's just that's why I say it's just such a breath of fresh air to hear a normal conversation with 2 people that disagree with one another, and they can have a normal conversation. No personal attacks, no tactics, no trying to give you a bunch of trivia questions and try to make it look like you're stupid or poison the well, or just a normal conversation based on the understandings that both parties have, and they just trying to hash it out that way. A discussion, so and that's not bad. Nobody look like I say, he still had his beliefs or whatever he believed. Nobody yelled at him, called him stupid, called him a retard. You know, just hey, okay, that's what you believe, and go on about your day. Hopefully, you could think about what what you think I believe, and you could come back. You know,
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I
anyway.
wish the Globers can do that, but I mean, but he's a Glober too, and he did the same thing when y'all debating flat Earth. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys need to just grow up, and you can have these conversations without trying to prove the other guy to be an idiot. But I know this is what you guys have to do to have these channels.
Yep. What's up, Bev?
What up? How's that working? Is that all right?
Yeah. Can you hear you?
Sound check. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yep.
I can. So?
Yeah, it's going good. Going good. How's this? This final experiment thing seems to be hitting you pretty hard, right?
How is it?
Because I mean, the way I seen it, you remember when it was all going off and we did the false dichotomy stuff. That was when you stopped the conversation.
Who did that?
Are you answering for him?
Oh,
You're talking to me.
Keith.
I thought you were talking to Reg.
No, I don't know, Reg, do I?
Well, when did I stop
Yes,
talking
you
about
do.
what conversation? It's
Yes,
still
you
a
do.
false
You know me.
dichotomy.
False dichotomy. And what would be the false dichotomy? What would the dichotomy be, for starters?
We've been through this because they only gave two solutions. So it's a false
Flat or
dichotomy.
globe.
It's either or. That
Yeah,
means
flat
it's a
or
false
globe.
dichotomy.
Yes, it's a false dichotomy.
Yeah, so flat
So
or
what's the
globe
issue?
is a false dichotomy.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you sure we understand all of this stuff?
Yes. What's the issue, Bev?
Well, if it's a false dichotomy, then they're both false.
No, a false dichotomy is based on you only give two outcomes.
No, that's a dichotomy.
No. A false dichotomy is because you only give two outcomes. Because this, therefore, it can only be that or that. That's a false dichotomy.
A dichotomy.
There's no third option,
two
and there is a third
choices.
option. And there's a third option. You know what the third option is?
I don't know. In a dichotomy only has two choices,
Yeah, and he's had a false dichotomy.
which means both of the choices are false.
You do know a false dichotomy is in the logic. You do know that's a form of logical fallacy. That's why they're calling it, right?
A false dichotomy, yes.
Right. So so you do have the understanding of why they're calling that a fallacy.
Because both of the choices are false. Yes.
No.
A true dichotomy
That's
is when
wrong.
one of the choices
and you're doing that on purpose,
is
bro.
true.
Why are you trying to say you don't know me? Because we had this conversation, bro. Remember
You're trying
in
to
Earth
jump in.
Awakening?
It was Flatzoid
Yeah,
that's got
remember
the
in
problem.
Earth Awakening we
We've
had
had
this
this
conversation?
discussion as well. Me and Bev has
With the
had this
false
discussion.
dichotomy,
as well.
then.
Right. You're saying the
seems-
dichotomy is only two choices, but that's
Yes.
what makes the fallacy. Where you basically saying that it's only two choices. It can only be one or the other.
No, the dichotomy is two
The
choices.
false dichotomy, whenever you call in the illogical fallacy, is that you're presenting something and you only given two choices.
Yes. That's
One
a
or the
dichotomy.
other. Wait a minute, hold on. One or the other can be true. That's a false dichotomy because in this same observation, right? In the same observation, there can be a third option.
Right, so you
That
don't
could be
think
true.
one of the
So it's a
choices
false
in the
dichotomy.
dichotomy is true.
Okay, so yeah, remember, this is the first time I brought it up with the debate on against Duffy. Why TFE is a false dichotomy? Just pay attention, okay? A false dichotomy is a logical fallacy that presents a situation having only two options.
No, that's a dichotomy. Has two
That's
options.
a false dichotomy.
No, a
Usually
dichotomy
extreme
has
opposites.
two options.
Usually extreme opposites, when in reality there are more possibilities. That's a false dichotomy, and that's exactly what TFE presented. only two options which had totally extreme opposite positions. So what is
So
the
do you not
argument?
think one of the choices, flat or globe, is true?
So let me put it this way. If we see a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, then that means it's a globe. Earth, and if we see the setting sun, the Earth is flat. That by itself is a false dichotomy. Why we look at the sun and ignore the huge glaring issues? We don't observe physical curve, we don't observe Earth movement, we don't observe gravity, blah, blah, blah. The whole bunch of claims of pseudoscience backings masquerading as science. So the point is, what I'm saying is, there's a third option. Do you know what the third option is?
In the dichotomy that you were given, flat
I
or
think you just
globe,
have a. I
there
think
is
you.
no third option.
Bev, I think you just have a misunderstanding of what a false dichotomy and logical fallacy is.
Well, no, I'm telling you.
You just
now,
looking at the two
dichotomy,
choices. Okay. You just
the
looking at the two.
dichotomy
Okay,
is two
Bev,
choices.
Bev. You
Yeah.
just looking at the two choices and saying that's a dichotomy. But you're not understanding that it's in logical fallacy that is being called, which means there's a flaw in the logic. So there's another word that's there, which is
Both
false.
of them can be proved
Okay,
false.
hold on, Bev. There's another word there, which is false. Now they also have to call the fallacy something else, which you could also use dilemma and say the same word, which is dichotomy. It's called false dilemma fallacy. There's another word there that which is false. The reason why it's false because there could be a third option. So it's not the word dichotomy, and it's not the word dilemma, and it's not the meaning of the word dichotomy, and it's not the meaning of the word dilemma.
What's the difference?
It's what the fallacy explaining, and what the fallacy is explaining is that if you're saying that there is a dichotomy, which would be only two, if you're saying that this situation can only have a dichotomy, which would be a true dichotomy, where the options can only be these two choices,
flat or globe,
then it will be okay, right? Then it would be wrong. It would be a flaw in your logic because it would be a false dichotomy. Because it's not proven either, actually.
No truth to be found. You're given two choices. If one of them is true, then it's a true dichotomy because the truth is within the dichotomy. One of the choices is the truth, the other one is false. That's what you call a true dichotomy.
Are you just like repeating what I said? And
well,
you just,
I'm trying to
so
point
you've been
out
cutting me off this whole time, and now you're gonna repeat what I said. Okay, hold on.
Say it's a false dichotomy.
Okay. Got you.
You are stating
got you. There could be a third
within the dichotomy.
So there could be a third option.
Okay,
that's
so
what makes it a false dichotomy. Great.
In the dichotomy,
are you just gonna or I'm gonna be able to finish, or I don't know.
Well,
Check this
What
out.
you're talking about. I don't know.
I do know what I'm talking about because because you're repeating.
Himself. You might have made the same mistakes.
Great.
But this isn't about
I got
me
you.
and you. This is about Flatzoid.
I got you. But I'm gonna explain this to you one more time, and then you and Flatzoid can have your thing because you're just repeating what I just said, bro. So I want you to know when you was bringing up that word dichotomy and saying that it only could be two choices, we was agreeing with you because we was basically saying yes, what we call in the logical fallacy of a false dichotomy, which means that there could be a third option, or this is not actually proven neither choice whatsoever.
That's why it's a fallacy.
So is it a true dichotomy or is it a false dichotomy?
It doesn't matter.
No, that it does matter. If you're saying it's a false dichotomy,
wait. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? It's a fallacy. Wait, Bev. Why does it matter? It's just a fallacy.
Well, it seems to me that if you're saying it's a false dichotomy, you're saying the truth cannot be found within the flat or globe.
No, it's a false dichotomy. No, brought up TFE was a false dichotomy, not flat Earth or globe is a false dichotomy. There's the difference.
Said earlier, it was the
flat Earth's a true dichotomy. Okay, the false
So
dichotomy
flat or globe
is the
is
argument.
a true dichotomy,
The
is it?
false dichotomy brought up is the TFE itself, because he said if sun, therefore globe, if not sun, therefore flat earth. There's another option.
Right. So can we go back to the original statement? Is flat or globe a true dichotomy?
Yes, if you just take it in that, but in the context of what TFE was, it's a false dichotomy, Bev. So I don't know what your issue is.
We basing it off the so-called experiment that they're presenting.
Exactly.
And what was the experiment?
If sun,
If the sun, therefore globe. If not, the sun does this, therefore flat.
Okay. So
I mean,
if
you
the
can at
sun-
least give us. You can at least give
if
us.
the
That's
sun
an affirming the
goes,
consequence fallacy.
circles
Bev,
anti-clockwise.
Bev, you can at least give us. That's an affirming the consequence fallacy. Bev.
If the sun does
Bev, if
anti-clockwise
the sun,
circles
mm-hmm,
in the sky,
mm-hmm,
Ant-
is that deductive reasoning?
Antarctica,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Is that deductive reasoning?
You're saying that involves some sort of a false dichotomy. So could that happen on a flat Earth?
that's not the argument presented, Reg.
It
We're trying to
falsifies
show
the
it's
flat
based
Earth,
on the
doesn't it?
context of TFE.
And
It
if
was
the false
specifically based on
dichotomy is in play,
TFE.
then you get the globe. That's where
The
that's
flat
what
Earth is a
happens to
true
Jeremy.
dichotomy, yes. But
Flat
what the
Earth
context
is just a
is,
statement.
the context
It's
of
not
TFE,
even a dichotomy.
it
It's
is.
one choice, Flatzoid.
The context of TFE was a false dichotomy.
And what was the
That's it.
context?
How many times do you have to repeat this?
That the sun circled in the sky. That was the
Yeah.
context, right? So you're saying
No. That's not the
that is
context.
a false
No,
dichotomy.
that's not what the context was. The
Okay,
context
go on then.
was if the sun circles and doesn't set, it's a globe. If the sun sets, it's a flat earth. That means it's given two extreme opposites with only those two contexts, which means it's a false dichotomy. It means it's not presenting a third option. There is a third option, which makes it a false dichotomy.
And what's the third option?
The sun could be circling on a flat earth too.
Okay, so that is okay then. The sun is expected to circle anti-clockwise in Antarctica on a flat Earth.
Why not?
Okay, well there you go then. So it didn't falsify the flat Earth.
Nobody said it did.
I think that's what Jeren. That's why Jeren.
Well,
flipped the globe.
Jeren was a shill all
It
along.
falsified Jeren's model, didn't it?
No. The thing is, Jeren used this as his out. We're very, very open about saying this before this happened. He's going to use this as his out. Anybody that left flat Earth by saying because the sun is in the sky was either never really a flat earther or they grifting.
It
It's as simple as
falsified
that.
the model he had of flat Earth.
What model? We don't live on a model. Why are you always
They-
pushing a model?
He had a circling sun around a north point.
On what model?
Well, isn't that the measured flat thing from Nathan Oakley? Aren't your circles of equal altitude, aren't they circling a point?
That's celestial navigation. It's got nothing to do with the sun going around the earth.
The sun circles an east circle, doesn't it? Don't you generate east?
A circle of
circles?
equal altitude is just showing that plane of measurement is flat.
So that's a circle, though.
Yes, it's a
Right, now,
circle
can that
of
circle
equal
of the
altitude.
sun have another center point?
You are literally having you're literally straw manning and red herring here.
I'm
It
not.
has nothing to do with each other. You're having a false equivalence.
Now, this is
The
why
sun has
Jeren-
got nothing
I've
to do
talked
with circle
Jeren
of equal
about this
altitude.
last night.
Wait, the sun has got nothing to do with circle of equal altitude.
Well, doesn't the sun do the same circle around
The
the north
sun
point?
circles around the earth. Great. But what's that got to do with circle of equal
The
altitude?
north point. It circles around the north point.
Who
doesn't
said
it?
that? Who said it circles around the north point?
When you go and watch it, it's just started in the north.
I didn't say it circles the North Point.
The sun actually
My
circles.
my observation in December showed the sun rising in the south and setting in the south.
goes- At the minute, the sun is doing clockwise circles in the Arctic,
And
and it did anti-clockwise circles in the
So?
Antarctic.
so
And
No problem.
and
Impossible to explain, but you don't see it as a problem.
so you saying the sun is changing directions?
Can you
that's what
explain
he's
it?
saying.
Are you saying the sun is changing directions? Or is the sun rising in the east and setting in the west?
Yeah, I'm working on a dilemma about
Oh, so you know the answer.
cardinal versus.
Also, we got to answer your
the
trivia
understanding
questions.
of these.
I got you. So we got to answer your questions, and you don't answer
No,
none of
you
ours.
can't answer any of the questions. It's
did.
impossible to explain.
I did answer it, but now I'm asking you. So the sun changing directions in the south
It
in the southern
goes,
hemisphere.
it goes clockwise in the north and anti-clockwise.
So the
in
sun is
south.
changing directions.
Well, they're different directions, aren't they?
No.
So the-
Clockwise
are
is
the sun-
different to anti-clockwise.
Wait,
So
You
the
know
sun
how
is
can you
not
dunk it?
rising in the east
From
and setting in
left
the
to
west.
right.
Wait.
It's
Do you know how I
different
can
than from
debunk
right
this,
to left.
Bev?
in
Bev,
my-
you
in
know
my
how I can
idea,
debunk
anyway.
this? I did an
Do I know how to
observation.
debunk it?
I did an observation in December. The sun rose southeast and set southwest.
Was
Wait,
that
which
going
dire-
from
which
right
direction?
to left for you?
East to west.
Remember, you said the sun is going in a different direction.
Clockwise and anti-clockwise.
No,
So my question, Bev.
that's not a direction. Which direction is the sun going? Is the sun rising in
The
the east and
directions
setting in
of
the west?
The hands of a clock.
Anti-clockwise and clockwise. That's just based on location or where you at.
Well, yeah, but do you know?
I'm gonna do
No.
something for you, Bev. I'm gonna
You're
do
gonna
something.
for me. Nice.
Yes.
Look how
Give
he's
me 2
getting angry
seconds.
about this little stupid argument.
I don't think
Probably
you've seen
like
an
to do
argument yet, have you?
I did. I told you my argument. Then I asked you a question about it. Okay, what is the sun doing?
Okay.
What direction of the sun is going?
Okay, you guys can see this arrow. Which way is it going, Bev?
What, for me? I don't know. It's dead hard to tell when you've got cameras because they all flip around, don't they? I don't know.
Okay. It's
For me,
on
it's
my.
going to the left of my screen. It's pointing to the left of my screen.
Okay,
Right.
well, I'm gonna do it this way. Hey guys, good to see you.
Hello, everyone.
It's
Hey, Jan.
I'm gonna make this big quickly for you. Okay. So anyway, it's a bit difficult because it's dark. But anyway, the arrow's pointing that way to my right shoulder. Okay.
Yeah, left for me.
I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna turn around. Which way is the arrow pointing now?
Still to the
To my
left.
left shoulder.
To
the
my
arrow's
left.
still-
I'm the one that you're asking me.
The arrow is still pointing exactly the same direction.
Straight left, yeah.
It's me that turned around.
Yeah.
The sun always rises from the east to the west.
All right. So are you
Hey,
saying
Ben, we
that-
that?
clarified this last night.
Are you saying that in Antarctica they were just facing the wrong way?
The sun rose in the east and set in the west. All over. That's how it moves in the earth.
Yeah.
You claiming they went in opposite direction is just your claim.
Look, it was going anti-clockwise to me. That's what I saw.
It always goes east to west, Bev.
The sun is not changing direction,
But
Bev. Sorry.
You have an east circle, don't you? Isn't east a circle? We tried to have a word about
Remember,
it, Nathan
the
Oakley.
sun is not changing direction, Bev. Sorry.
Is east west a straight line or is it a circle?
Are you changing? You changing the topic now?
No, I'm
He
talking
is.
about the same thing. To you guys,
Okay.
flat
Well,
earthers,
Okay, let's akin this to
is,
go to
is the
a.
sun
I've got another one.
going from east to west in a straight line, or is it
Keith,
in a
he
circle?
he don't even have a rebuttal for what you just showed him.
Is it in a circle?
He doesn't.
They can't. Okay. It's on screen, guys. I'm going to make a little NASCAR
Make a
track.
circle.
I'm going to make a little NASCAR track, okay?
Put Polaris in the center, or your
I'm
north
making
point.
I'm making a little NASCAR track. Okay, and we're gonna have a car drive in a direction. Okay,
Can we
because
stand in
everybody
the middle?
knows NASCAR.
We're standing
They
in the middle, are we?
only ever go one direction, and which way do they always turn, guys? Left. Correct.
Yeah. They constant lefts in NASCAR, and they
So that's
center.
anti-clockwise, right?
Okay. Now we're gonna have a person standing, and they're gonna face that direction.
Would you call that anti-clockwise?
It doesn't matter. Anyway, which direction
Doesn't matter.
is he appearing to go past this person? Simple. Right to left. There's the right shoulder. That's the left shoulder. Now we're going to have the same person just turn around. There we go. Just turned around. Now that same car is still driving. Still driving. Now, which direction is this car coming past now?
Still going anti-clockwise, isn't it?
Yeah, right shoulder, left shoulder. Guess what? It looks the other way now. It's coming which way?
Yeah, but that's not the way the sun goes in the north, is it?
It's just taking based on your perception, dude. It's just
No,
how
no,
you
that's-
stand in there.
That's the opposite way that the sun goes in the north.
It never goes the opposite way. It's how you perceive it because of how you turned. It's as simple as that.
Well,
It's
when I'm
literally
here,
based on the physical
I'll
location
be
where
back in
you're
a
at.
few minutes, guys.
right, when I'm stood in the center of this circle, it seems like you're turning clockwise, right, in the north.
Did you see the example?
Yeah, he just had it going anti-clockwise.
No.
He
He
didn't
had it
ever
going
make
from
it
his
look like
shoulders.
it was going clockwise.
No, he had the sun going in the same direction.
Yeah, but it doesn't
The
go
car-
in that direction in the north,
Right,
does it?
right. Got you.
It goes in the opposite direction.
I got you.
to
The
that.
car was going in this. The car that was on the track was going in the same direction.
Where do you live? Do you live in
It was
America?
rising in the east, and it's in the west.
Right, so if
Now,
you
based-
point at
now,
the sun
based
during
on-
the day, which way
Got
do
you.
you turn?
I got you. Now, based on the physical location where you're at, right? You're going to perceive the sun, which is based on your perspective. You're going to perceive the sun to either go from your right shoulder to your left shoulder, based on the physical location where you're at. And if you look up and look at the sun, it's still going in the same direction, but based on the physical location where you're at in perspective, you may see the sun go from your left shoulder to your right shoulder. But the sun physically
always in the
going in the
center.
same direction, sir.
You're always in the center. If you point at those cars, right?
What do you mean
as
you're
they're
always in the
turning,
center?
which way do you turn? You turn.
What do you mean? What do you mean
anti-clockwise,
by
don't you?
always being in the center?
Well, when you're watching the sun circle around you,
Hmm.
you are in the center, aren't you?
You're not always in the center. It's based on the physical location where the sun.
When
is
you're
moving.
watching the sun circle around you,
You are watching the
you
sun in the.
are in
wait-
the center of the circle.
Yes,
aren't
and
you?
it's based on the okay. It's based on your ground position where you're at. Is how you're going to perceive the
you're
sun.
in the
The
center
sun
of the
is
circle.
again. Here we go again. The sun is going in the same direction.
It's not. One of
It
them
is.
is
It
clockwise.
is. It
The
is. I mean,
other
according to
one
the globe, the
is
sun is not moving at all. But
Clockwise.
I tried this 2
According-
hours last
according-
night. It didn't work.
it's not
She typed them-
anti-clockwise. The sun is going in the same direction. You just in a different location. Even on the globe, they have the same thing on the globe. It's just that the globe is actually turning and the sun is not.
Well, if you were to follow the sun, you would.
But the
be
sun, wait a minute. But the globe is only, hold on. But the globe is only turning one way, which means that the sun would still be going
We're not
in the
talking
same direction, rising in
worry
the
about-
east and setting in the west.
worry about the globe, right? We're
Wait a minute. I'm just
watching
giving
the
you.
sun.
Okay. I got you. I'm just giving you two perspectives. The globe claims that the earth is turning and the sun is still. but the Earth is turning in one direction, which would make the sun go in one direction. Based on your physical location, that is all based on perspective. So it may appear that the sun, what is not actually appearing, is based on your perspective. So you may look up at the sun, and in one physical location, maybe in the north, in one physical location, the sun would probably go from your right shoulder to your left shoulder. And then when you go in the southern hemisphere, which you guys claim that you're upside down looking at the sun on the globe, your sun is actually the sun will appear to go from your right shoulder to your left shoulder. It would appear to go opposite. But that actually works on the globe and the flat Earth. So you're not actually being exclusive because the sun is going in the same direction. You're saying that the sun is going in a different direction, which the globe don't claim that.
For fuck's sake, yes. In reality, you can go to a place now in the north. If you go the furthest northerly city that we have, you go there. It's just started. The sun has started the 24-hour trip for the summer. Now, if you point at the sun for the entire day, you will turn clockwise. Right. Now,
and when you go
when they went to Antarctica, if they were to point at the sun, they would be turning anti-clockwise. Right.
And what is clockwise? Okay, hold on. What is clockwise?
The same way. Have you ever seen a clock with the hands?
Right. And which way is clockwise?
3, 4. Like when you follow the numbers in ascending order. That's
what
clockwise.
is okay? Which direction is clockwise?
Which direction is clockwise?
Is it left or right?
It's clockwise.
Okay. Do you know what it is? Is it left or right?
I don't understand what you're talking about.
I'm asking you.
Right.
There's clockwise and
right.
anti-clockwise.
Yes. Yes, the clock is going left or right. Yes. When the clock is moving, it's going left or right. Which way is it?
It's going clockwise.
Okay, so you don't know, bro. Okay, I got you.
Not going to the left at all. It's going clockwise.
I got you. So when the sun is rising in the east and setting in the west, is going in one direction on this is globe or flat Earth, right? It depends on the position where you're at. Is the sun may appear to go right or left. You're calling it clockwise or anti-clockwise. Going right, which means it's coming from your right shoulder to your left shoulder. And if you're standing in the southern hemisphere, it may appear to go from your left shoulder to your right shoulder. That is perspective. It doesn't mean that the direction of the sun is changing, bro.
Let's make it very simple. The point of view depends on the point of sitting.
I don't know why Bev like to play with words. He could have just said
You're
right.
in the center of the circle.
We covered this last night, Bev, all of it, dude, and you still didn't get it last night. You're not getting it.
Yeah, because you just, I don't know what you were
Here
talking
we go.
about a
Here we
new.
go.
Roger's got 3 points of rotation. He thinks there's a point of rotation.
Okay, Bev, I've got it on screen for you, as simple as I can make it for you. Okay, again, back to the NASCAR track. It's the sun going across. If two people are standing next to each other, one's looking that way, one's looking that way, it appears to go right to left for that guy, and for the same person right next to him, it appears to go left to right. Now, the same two people walk to the other side of the field, and the car's still coming along. It now appears for this guy facing that way, left to right, and for that guy, right to left. You understand? The car's still going exactly the same direction, just like the sun. Same direction, always east to west. It's where you look which determines its direction.
That doesn't look anything like. If I were to show that somebody who's in the north at the minute, they'd say that's the opposite direction to what the sun's going at the minute.
Sun only goes east to west. That's the point.
This is getting ridiculous. It's an example, Bev. It's not the actual sun.
I just dumbed it down as much as I can.
Bev, you're being very disingenuous.
That's what Flatzoid imagines the circle east to west is.
It's an example, Bev. It's not the
I think
actual sun, bro.
I'm gonna do this Swiss way. I've got another way I can maybe do this.
Hey, good luck, class. It's gonna be fun.
How do I get into this now? Has anybody got Stellarium up?
What?
Stellarium. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. I've never used Stellarium before. Should be interesting. Okay.
Oh,
There we go. Stellarium. See? Standing. Doesn't really matter. Look at that. Okay. Now you see it shows east, it shows south, it shows west, it shows north. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The sun is always going to rise in the east. And it's going to go where? To the west.
Yes.
Now I want to see if I can get the sun. How do you get the sun on here?
That's when the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. For those of us, right? That's the science. That's what people get
It's
to know.
always east to west, no matter where
What
you are.
happens
That's
when
the
it
point.
doesn't set?
What do you mean it doesn't?
It does.
It does set, man.
It
What you talking
doesn't
about?
set at the minute.
Has anybody
in the north?
ever used Stellarium before?
It's
How
on
do you
its
put the
it's
sun
on
on?
its cycle at the minute in the north, where it stays
How do I
above.
put the sun up? Has anybody ever used Stellarium before? Do you know how to put the sun?
Yeah, I never used it.
Will you be able to bring it up so we can like look at the sun go across the sky?
Yeah, I never used that before.
Shots.
I don't know what you're trying
Maybe
to
Bev
explain
used
to
it
me,
before.
Flatzoid. I know that in the north, the sun circles clockwise, and the stars, the lights in the sky, circle Polaris anti-clockwise. Right? Whereas in the south,
It's not.
the sun circles anti-clockwise.
The sun is
and
going
the
in one
stars
direction.
circle that
I got
point
you.
in the sky clockwise.
No, the sun is going in one direction and rises in the east and sets in the
East
west.
sits in the west.
I don't know why you keep saying this and just repeating it. That is doing something
When
different.
it doesn't set, what does it do?
It rises in the east and sets in the west. Is still going in that same direction. And in what you guys model, the sun is not moving. The earth is
Circles,
moving.
have we? We're not been
Yeah,
talking
and technically, it
about
doesn't
Oh, I
actually
mean,
set. Either.
Yeah, the
doesn't
sun don't
set.
actually sets, but it's going in one direction, east to west. You're not on the sun, like you're looking at the sun from the ground. That's perspective. It
Isn't
depends
a
on where you're.
latitude circle
It depends
like
on where
the
you're
east?
looking at the sun. That's where it's. It depends on where you're looking at the sun. That is the direction you're going to think the sun is actually going. It's either
Yeah,
going to go from.
is a
It's either going to
latitude
move
circle
right.
east and west?
Okay. It's either going to move right or it's going to move left, which is clockwise or anti-clockwise, right or left. So you're not even actually talking about the physical direction the sun is going when you say clockwise and anti-clockwise.
Yeah, it's a latitude circle. East west.
My God.
There we go. This is always the same. Summer, autumn, spring, winter. Where's the sunrise? East, sets in the west. Same direction, constantly, no matter where you are on Earth. Do you have an issue thinking in 3 dimensions or something?
Sun circles in the sky, Flatzoid.
Yes, east to west.
Yes.
3-dimensional, right?
Yes.
Yes, east to west.
Now, can we sort out the
Yes,
clockwise
yes.
and anti-clockwise?
Clockwise, anti-clockwise is based on our perspective. It's either going right or left.
Okay.
I was
You know,
saying
my
to the
God.
guys
This
the other
way.
day,
And then
it's
you
very
getting
obvious
frustrated.
that
Have you
whoever
ever
made
stood
the clock
outside? Have you
lives
ever
in the
stood
north.
outside? Wait, have you ever
Probably
stood
Swiss.
outside, Viv, and saw the sun ahead of you? So when you look up, you see the sun.
Directly above my head.
Yes.
That's what you call ahead of you.
Have you stood and watched the sun directly above your head?
No.
Do you think the sun just goes like this, or don't you think the sun goes like this?
Well, at the equator, it goes directly over your head in a straight line, doesn't it?
You seen it at the equator?
So
like
now
you-
it
it's a
does not
weather-
go east to west. I mean, now it doesn't go
It goes from
anti-clockwise
east to
or
west in a
clockwise.
straight line
It
at
goes
the
east to west.
equator.
My question I asked literally showed that you just proved my point. The
What?
sun at the equator goes above your head, so it doesn't
Yeah,
go
in a direct
clockwise.
straight line.
It goes east to west.
In a straight line. Yeah.
East to west
At
is
a certain
circle.
time of year, right? Let's put the qualifiers there.
Circle.
In a straight line. Yeah. At the equator, the sun goes from east to west in a straight line at a certain time of year. No. Is that you not saying no?
We're waiting for you to like explain it and bring evidence.
What? Evidence of what? The sun circles in the north going clockwise, and the sun circles in the south going anti-clockwise. And
It depends
the
where you
sun,
stand
at a
and
certain
where
time
you
of
look.
year, when you
Jesus.
stand at the equator going directly over your head in
I
a
don't know.
straight
I don't know if
How
it's
you
because
can't
I'm very
comprehend.
tired and it's late, but it's
Your
like this is
position
really
is
getting
important.
nowhere.
Your position is the key.
Yeah,
my
he don't.
position.
Oh,
Yeah, you don't get it.
It's just observe.
I told you 2 hours last night. Nothing, man. Nothing.
Yeah,
Dave,
the
this
sun.
is embarrassing, man.
Yeah, he don't get it. He don't
No,
understand
well,
right
I
and
do
left.
get it.
children get it. You know,
Circles
if you explain this kind of
clockwise,
stuff to
sun
children, they
circles
will get it.
anti-clockwise, and sun goes directly over your head in a straight line. 1, 2, 3. Bish, bash, bosh. Get it done. That's real globe observations, that.
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, they're not.
They're not. Yeah,
No.
they have. They've been observed, haven't they?
Well, you said latitude, so how is it being observed?
Logan's Run. No such thing as straight lines, Bev.
It's a geometric concept, isn't it?
He said they were straight lines last night. That's what he told me.
Yeah,
Oh.
Bev's is trolling, bro.
Well, I mean, Euclidean, right? I mean, there's all sorts of different straight lines, isn't there? Different geometries.
But you said there's no such thing as straight lines, bro.
Who said that?
According to them, that's what you said last night.
I don't know. Who said that?
You, I guess.
I didn't say that. I
Oh,
know
so there
what-
is
I know
straight
what-
He
lines?
did say there were straight lines last night on my show,
Of course I did.
but I don't know if he said it before or not. Are there straight lines, Bev? Are all lines straight?
Well, not all lines.
Some's curved.
I mean, what are you trying to make up, Roger? I mean,
Some are slope.
yeah, you can have a straight line that's sloped, can't you? But I mean,
We just
obviously,
giving you different
straight
lines.
lines are a
So you can-
geometric concept. The shortest distance.
I mean, what is the
between 2
purpose of
points.
putting words in my mouth? I'm just giving you the different. Some is curved, some is straight, some are slope. But the sun go in one direction, Bev. It's rising in the east, sets in the west, bro. I mean, I don't know how other. I
mean,
don't
you
know how
learn
many
this in
ways we could
school.
tell
Yeah,
you
we
that.
get that.
You
I
learn
get
this
it,
in
right?
primary
I
school,
just
probably.
so you know, right? This sun rising in the east and setting in the west appears as a clockwise circle in the north, a anti-clockwise circle in the south,
It appears to
and
go.
a straight line at the equator.
So you mean it appears to go right in the north and it appears to go left in the south?
It does 3 different things.
Makes
doesn't it?
makes sense.
Well,
Depends
I
on
did say
it depends
it's
on the
impossible
physical
to
location.
explain.
Depends on the physical location where you're standing, right, Beth?
You guys are the geniuses, right? Yeah. 3 different locations.
I mean, yeah,
Just
we
3
gave you like a
different
couple.
things.
I mean, Flatzoid gave you a few examples of how that can be true. You haven't given us one yet.
You just turned round. Old Flatzoid did.
That's
Turn
what it
round.
is.
Yeah, like
That's
three-
literally
like
what
three.
it is. What it is.
Still watching it go anti-clockwise.
There's no
No,
anti-clockwise.
There's no anti-clockwise. You're watching the direction of the
It's
sun,
always just
and you're
east to
watching the
west.
man's perspective of how he see the sun to be. One, when he had the arrow going right, the sun was still going right, but you seen the sun right. But Flatzoid, he seen the sun going right. Then when he turned around, Flatzoid seen the sun appears to go left. Why? Because the different position he was in. So you basically saying you see the sun looking like it's going clockwise or anti-clockwise, or it's going anti-clockwise in the south. That's just based on the position where you're at.
Sounds like you guys are trying to equivocate race cars with the sun for some reason.
I just
Or
dumbed
not. It's
it
just an
down.
example,
It was
bro.
an example. It was just.
Yeah, but I mean,
You
it wasn't a very good
Did you try to
example,
be funny,
was it?
bro? Cause I know you're not this dumb, Beth, and I know you understand this, bro.
I've seen some of Flatzoid's presentations. I saw that one about the false dichotomy earlier, right?
Yeah.
And his time angle.
And we
and
know you know
latitude
what a
even
false dichotomy,
works.
and I know you know what a false dichotomy is. Why you trying to play like you never had this conversation with me
When you
before?
can
Because I
prove
talked to you
both of
about
the
it,
choices false.
and I talked to you about this on Earth Awakenings when Nathan Oakley left about the false dichotomy, and we both
Well,
talked
he said he
about
didn't know you, Rich.
dichotomy is.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we've decided it's not a false dichotomy, haven't we?
So you know what this stuff is, and you trying to was you trying to test us or something?
No, because I was saying the flat versus globe was the false dichotomy, but it seems like Flatzoid seems to have sorted that out by making it into a true dichotomy.
What is he talking about?
What? Yeah, you don't get it, bro.
The initial claim for
Okay,
the
guys, I
dichotomy
think it's
Flatzoid
time I
was
need to
the
go sleep.
flat
I've
versus
got
globe.
work in a few hours, and Bev is definitely not getting very simple concepts. So
We'll pick it up tomorrow, Beth.
yeah, we'll try again.
You just leave the thing open. We'll sort it out. Don't worry
We'll
about
pick
it.
it up tomorrow, bro. I gotta go too. We'll pick it
Yeah.
up
All right,
tomorrow,
well,
Beth.
you're
You
not
coming
really
tomorrow?
needed.
We'll pick it
There's
up tomorrow.
somebody else that wants to be able to sort this out.
Bev, imagine in your room there is someone who is standing above your head and holding torch.
Somebody standing above my head.
Yes, for example, on elevation or ladder or something, and he's pushed around.
He's not going to get it in 10 seconds. Okay. He's not.
Are you adding
I'll
extra
try. I try
dimension?
to.
You're
I
adding
try-
an extra dimension. You're making it harder for him.
I try to keep it as kiss. Keep it stupid simple.
An extra dimension.
All right. So there is
extra
someone above your
dimension
head
did he add?
with a torch and moving around the room. Doesn't matter if it's clockwise, anti-clockwise. Does the light and lighting your floor dictates the shape of the floor?
No.
What?
Let's let Flatzoid go
even
to
get it.
sleep. Man. Let's let him go to sleep.
I think Will Duffy said it best. Why are you obfuscating from the point? The light in the sun in the sky doesn't dictate the floor shape.
Yeah, that's dead right.
Yeah, and
I
that's why
think
we
Bev
go.
said that too one time.
Yeah, so we all agree then.
Definitely.
PFP is a waste of
Definitely.
everybody's time.
It's not that though. That's not the thing. It was the viewing of the sun circle
Okay.
that did it for
Okay.
Jaren. I can tell you exactly how it happened.
Okay, sure.
Jaren will tell you. I mean, Jaren knows that it's the sun circle going.
Sorry, I don't think you should
anti-clockwise.
trust anything Jaren says. Just
Yeah, I
to-
thought Jaren knows. Especially when Jaren said the sun doesn't determine multiple years. And now all of a sudden, this is his evidence that he need to go back to the globe when he was discrediting
I
it for
think it
years.
was more. It was more the fact that there was nothing else. For
No,
him
he didn't say
to keep him
anything
on the flat
more.
Earth.
Except he didn't say anything more. He based it on this experiment, which you know is a
Jaren's
false
been in this
dichotomy.
for years, and he had nothing for the flat Earth.
Here we go.
Absolutely zero to help.
This is
keep
exactly
him
what I'm
on
saying.
Earth.
This he said. Duffy said it best.
How have you measured the diameter of the sun changing since the days of Adam?
I haven't measured it, and I want to
Okay, so
point
it's
out.
a false
I wanna-
claim. So you're
I
just
wanna
appealing
point-
to.
Hey, Sean, let me answer. I want to point out to the audience you are evading the topic of the debate, which is the shape of the Earth, by talking about the sun.
Your whole TFE is about the sun. You
Exactly.
bloody-
Wow. So he admits that has nothing to do with the Earth. He just admitted it, right?
There we go.
Yeah, like he did say about measuring the diameter that he hadn't done.
Not a measurement of the sun, is it?
No.
Or the sun location, is it?
No, it was the anti-clockwise sun circle.
That would be a
Jerry
location of where the sun is.
He couldn't put it on
That
his
would be a
model.
physical location of where the
Had
sun is at.
nowhere to put it.
But yes, got you. So that would be
And
a
then
physical.
he had nothing else
I heard
on
that,
flat
babe.
Earth to keep him on the flat Earth.
Great, I got you.
And
I heard that.
then, on top of that, he had a load of flat earthers calling him a shill.
Got you. I got you. I heard that, Bev. But that would be a physical location of where the sun is at, right? And what the sun is doing, correct?
Where you are at. It's
No,
what
where
the
the sun?
sun's doing while you are
No,
there.
they went to Antarctica to see what the sun would do, to see if there would be a 24-hour sun.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the physical location of where the sun. That's their observation, right? I mean, you just
That's where they
can I
went
have
to.
that? Can I have that? Because it seems like you don't want to give me anything since you don't know me.
The
Even though I
physical
talked to you
location
several
of the
times.
sun. No, they didn't go and check the physical location of the sun.
Oh yeah, because they don't have
went to a
that.
place to observe what the sun did.
Exactly, which I just said, but you're going to say it differently. I guess I can't have that neither. So yeah, so they are checking out what the sun is doing in the sky and whether or not it's going to be there for 24 hours, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Right. So when Will Duffy just said, "Oh, you want to talk about the sun," and that had nothing to do about the shape of the earth, did that mean that this whole experiment is just basically
That's what
contradicting
TV's
what
about.
he just said? Then, correct?
He was trying to talk about the diameter and the measurement
no,
of
the
the
sun.
diameter of the
You're
sun.
trying to get out of
Has
it.
nothing
You're
to
trying
do
to
with
get
the
out
earth.
of it. Come on. The sun doesn't dictate what the shape of the earth. Keep it real, Beth.
Nobody said
You
it
said it
did.
multiple times. I know.
Nobody
So
said it did.
great. Say it for me, Beth. So the sun, whether or not what the sun doing in the sky, doesn't dictate the shape of the earth. Say it for me, Beth. You don't know me.
Yes.
Because you
I don't
said it
think
to me
that
before,
nobody's
even though
ever
you
said
don't know me,
that
but it's
does.
cool. I guess I'm a forgettable guy. So yes, Beth. The sun doesn't dictate the shape of the earth. Great. Yeah, that would be like the 5th time you told me that, even though you don't know me, but it's okay, Beth. I'm a forgettable guy. I know. You said it to me in Earth Awakening too.
Well,
Got angry with me,
people,
FX.
right? You know, whenever
Yeah,
I
so
talk
why are you harping on this so hard, Beth?
loads of people.
So why would Jaren? Great. So why
Especially
would
people who
Jaren?
get triggered
Right.
like you.
Got you. And Jaren, you know who else said it? That very same thing you just admitted to me?
Yeah.
Jaren, right?
What the sun
Jaren, right?
falsified
Jaren, right?
model.
So it didn't falsify his model when he said the
Didn't
exact same
falsify
thing you
your
just said.
model,
Wait a
right?
minute.
But
I'm
it
not talking about my
falsified
model. You talk about Jaren.
Jaren's
No. Yeah, I know, Beth. We talking about Jaren. It didn't falsify my model.
Yes.
We talking about Jaren's model.
Yes.
So it didn't falsify Jaren's model when he made the exact same.
Falsify his model when he saw
So it
the
didn't
sun circling anti-clockwise
Listen.
in the sky. That
Got you.
falsified the model he
Got you.
had
I got
of
you.
his flat Earth.
Got you. But it
And
didn't
because
falsify.
of the false dichotomy, he falsified flat and went to globe.
Yeah, he didn't.
Obviously.
But it didn't falsify. But it didn't falsify his model when he made that exact statement that the sun doesn't dictate the shape of the earth. The one that you just made to me. It didn't falsify his model then.
That's not the reasoning. But it's all right, you know.
So that means what he's saying now would be contradicting what he said back then, right?
It falsifies
The things that me and you agree with.
his flat Earth model.
Oh, the model that Jaren was claiming that he didn't have a few years ago, and also the model that he said that the sun doesn't dictate the shape of the earth a few years ago.
We heard all of the other flat Earth.
You can't get out of this, Beth. I don't know why you keep trying to do it, bro.
Right?
All right, keep trying to go to sleep, Beth. Keep trying to go to sleep.
How long? But
Yes,
Flatzoid
okay.
has acknowledged
Live
tonight
on
that
Flatzoid's
it could
channel.
actually have happened.
Okay, I got you.
It's a possible thing on the flat Earth.
Oh, sure it is, Beth.
I never
Even
said
though you
that.
said,
Roger, you
When
should
did I
pipe in
acknowledge
now and
that?
put
What's he
your
talking about?
rotation point.
yeah, he's trying to put words in your mouth now. Even though you just admitted to us live on Flatzoid's channel, which is something very legendary, live on Flatzoid's channel that the sun and what the sun does in the sky doesn't dictate the shape of the earth, which means that that's not deductive reasoning.
It's the
Right.
reasoning.
This is so true what Carol says. Never ask a glober to carpet your house. They'll measure the light bulbs. So true.
But that don't apply to Bev because Bev said it doesn't dictate the shape of the earth. Like Jaren said it a few years ago. But now Jaren contradicting himself and Bev can't even give me that. Oh, because you don't know me. You don't know me, it's fine, Bev, but you can at least admit that Jaren did contradict himself just now.
I know that Jerem falsified his model.
He never falsified anything. He just decided to follow his grift, man.
Think it's that easy?
Yeah, he's been called out as a shill for over 10 years, man.
Are you following your grift?
What grift do I have? Explain to me how it's a grift to literally hurt my channel.
What do you think Jerem's done?
He's made his channel bigger.
Has he?
Yes.
Yeah, you got a bunch of Globers over there.
He's got a whole bunch of Globers literally paying him a lot of money now just to say stupid things to flat earthers.
You don't think his channel got bigger?
I never really watched Jeren anyway. Before.
Why are you defending him then? Get out of here, man. Why are you in here trolling?
I'm just telling you that
Keith's trying to go to sleep. Flatzoid's trying to go to sleep, and you in here messing
provide
with us.
fact, and then he's
pretending you don't know me.
Perception, and then he switched. Oh, I didn't even follow him. I didn't watch him. This is like what?
Yeah. I thought that Will Duffy personally was trying to get rid of the flat versus globe problem because it's dead divisive.
Well, he said he was doing that for a lady that was in his church. It was personal.
But he's really doing it for his church, right? Because why do you want to inject something that's so divisive into a religion?
Next joke, please.
Okay.
There's a proof, right, Flatzoid, of flat. You said it's a true dichotomy, right? So there's a proof of
no. Oh my word. Okay, nice guys. You guys can still carry on chatting after this one, yeah, but cheers guys, I'm ending the stream. Have a great day.
The question